Hi everyone, and welcome to Deep Geek Live. Today we have another Tinfoil Thursday. I did one of these, I don't know how long ago, 6 months, a year, maybe even more ago, and I really enjoyed it, and I think everyone else seemed to really enjoy it as well. Basically, it's just bring your A Song of Ice and Fire tinfoil theories, and I will just talk about them for a while. We've got some old classics and some completely new ones for me as well from questions from my patrons. So what we'll do it will just be dotting around question to question, theory to theory, and we will see where we go. Should be a lot of fun. But first, what I always try and do is give a little bit of an update on what's been going on in the wider fantasy world this week. The big thing for anyone who's a Lord of the Rings fan will have known that today, a few hours ago, the Lord of the Rings on Prime Twitter account suddenly burst into life. We had for, I don't know, 2 years since they started filming the Lord of the Rings TV show, we have had so little. We've had one publicity shot. That's the only thing we've had. And then suddenly today we get, I think it was 23, all just bang, 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 bang. What I will do is I'm going to very quickly give you my thoughts on that. This isn't a Lord of the Rings stream, but I know there are quite a few people who are wanting some thoughts on that. I will, as I did whenever, it must have been a couple of weeks or so ago, I will put a timestamp after this is finished. I will put a timestamp down in the description, so if you're not interested in that, you can skip forward to the tinfoil theory stuff. Okay, so let me see if I can get the technology to work first. Here we go. Right, so these are well, first of all, I was saying I've just got up because I'm not clever enough to work out how to do a slideshow on this thing yet. I've just gone to a random website, Polygon. Hat tip to you. That's the website I found that had all of the pictures on. So I will quickly run through these. The first thing to say is that the Tolkien community is still digesting these. I suspect that we will get a lot more over the course of the next few days. Then details will come out. People will notice things. There's a lot of bits of some runes and different places, lots of detail in the costumes, but we haven't worked our way through all of that. So this is first reaction stuff we've got going on here, and we've got a series of pictures, 23 pictures, all focusing in on characters' hands. Now, this is obviously because this is the Rings of Power, so we're looking for rings. And when we're looking for rings, obviously, we've got the One Ring. We've got the 9 rings for mortal men. 3 of them are Numenorians. 1 of them went to an Easterling. The other 5, we don't know. So it's possible we'll spend a lot of the TV show trying to guess who has these. It really depends on when in the Second Age they do this. The other thing to note is that we do not yet have a proper list of characters, so trying to figure out who these people are, what's being symbolized by what's going on, is quite hard work, as we don't know exactly when it's set. We've been told across the entire Second Age, which is thousands of years. We do know some characters who are definitely going to be around: Galadriel, Elrond, Gil-galad, the elves. We've also got, obviously, Sauron was around. We've got what will become the Nazgul, the Ring Wraiths. And we've also got a few other random characters like the Blue Wizards who were there. Glorfindel arrived back at some point in the Second Age. And there are obviously dwarves around as well. So we've got lots of types of characters to be looking out for. What I will do is I'll quickly go through these pictures, just say the things that I spotted, and then I'm sure that if you want to say anything in the chat, I'll try and pick up a few extra comments if anyone has got them. Mattia Dominique saying Philosopher's Games is now coming up to 5 hours. He said he's about to stop. Yeah, I caught a little bit of the Philosopher's Games early on. He is doing a live stream about this. He was my guest on this channel a little while ago. If you think I do long live streams, then you should check out his. So we've got 2. The first 2 we've got here. The one here, obviously very intriguing. The Black Gauntlet, the sword. this looks evil. This looks bad. My guess is probably not Sauron. Sauron only looks like a big evil lord at the very end of the Second Age. So this probably isn't him. It could well be one of the Nazgul. Maybe we're looking at the Witch King here. It's hard to say beyond that, but yeah, definitely this looks like one of the bad guys, obviously. The other character in blue, we've got a lot of noble type characters here. It's quite hard to tell exactly just by looking at them whether they're elves or humans, but if they're well dressed like this, then they will almost certainly be Numenorian if they are human. So I will skip up to these next two because they're quite interesting. The one on the right, the holding the apple, this it's possible that this is Lenny Henry. This is one of the actors that we know is going to be in there. He is a black man with a grey beard. So instantly we're thinking maybe this is him. And he has revealed, he went a bit off script, he has revealed that he is a sort of a proto-hobbit, which is quite an interesting idea. And that kind of fits with the apple, if hobbits do like their food, so maybe that's what we're looking at here. All of these characters, I say, they're holding something or they're doing something with their hands, presumably to give us some sort of flavor of who that character is. This next character here on the other side, holding a sword, looking quite heroic, very bright and shiny. I do not know, but I might get that could be someone like Isildur or again an elf. There's not much to say about this character with the book, but I would like to talk a little bit about this other character, bracelets and holding what looks like a white flower. Now, it's possible that this white flower is one of the flowers from Nimloth. Now, this is, if you remember in the Lord of the Rings films, the movies, in Minas Tirith, they had that big tree, which was dead, the white tree, and it became the white tree of Gondor. This is a central plot point, all running all the way through from the early years, because the original tree came from the Undying Lands. This was planted in Numenor and grew in Numenor, and this was a sort of a symbol of the blessing from the Valar, this white tree. Now, over time, this became quite symbolic because obviously the Numenorians started to turn against the Valar, but the good guys, the faithful, Elendil and Isildur, they came up with a plan to manage to get a sapling out effectively so that they could save the white tree, and that is what ends up going over to Middle Earth at the end of it. Who might this be holding one of these flowers? It's possible, just a guess, but it's possible this could be Tar Miriel, who is the queen of the last king of Numenor, Ar-Pharazôn. She should have been the ruling queen, but basically Ar-Pharazôn launched a coup, married her, and became king himself. So it's possible that that's what we're looking at there. These two characters, again, not huge amounts to go on here. We've got rope. We've got a few characters with sort of rope and perhaps slightly nautical feelings about them. This is to be expected. Numenor is an island nation, so traveling by ship is going to be incredibly important. If you wish to get across to Middle Earth and back, it's by ship. The people who escaped at the end obviously got out by ship, and they were a great seafaring nation, the Numenorians. So expect to see lots of boats and shipbuilding. The character on the right, not 100% sure, that some berries or something being held there. So again, maybe this is some sort of woodland folk. Maybe this is proto-hobbits. The character on the left, though, I wonder if this is a staff. If this is a staff this character is holding, and if that is a blue sort of gown or something that's being worn, it's possible this is one of the blue wizards. The blue wizards were, we remember from third age, when you have the Astari, there were 5 Astari. We have Saruman, Gandalf, Radagast, and the 2 blue wizards. And they go off into the east and we don't see them. But Tolkien mentions this a few times, and one of the times he mentions, he talks about them being there in the Second Age, and they were doing good work to foil what was happening in the East in the Second Age. So it's possible that we might see one of the blue wizards. The Black Sword, is one of the things that has got me most excited, I have to say, because there are 2 black swords that we know of in Tolkien's universe, and they were forged from a meteorite that falls to the ground, and one of them, this looks like it eventually becomes known as Gurthang, has almost like a life of its own, and it's quite a cursed blade, and it has this astonishing history. It ends up in the hands of Turin, who's this great and legendary character. If you know the story of the children of Húrin, you'll know what's going on there. This was his sword, and this sword slew Glaurung, the first great dragon. Then he received some really quite horrible news, and he committed suicide, killing himself with the sword, and the sword broke, we're told. But he was buried, and the sword was buried with him. That's the story. It's epically long, fantastic story. This looks like that sword. That was in the First Age, though, and we're told that this is in the Second Age. So are we going to get a little bit from the First Age? Is this just some relic that they've dug up that they're having for the Second Age? It's not clear, but this, maybe it's something else, but a black sword that looks cursed and is broken. That's what it seems to be. These 2 are also fascinating. The one on my right as I'm looking at it, the person holding it's a dagger or a very slender sword. If you look at the detail there, you'll see that it looks like the 2 trees of Valinor. That's what the sort of the markings on it are. You get these 2 trees, and they were in fact in the first, you've seen that first publicity shot, they were in the background, those 2 trees of Valinor. So who would have something that is reminiscent of Valinor in its heyday? Well, if I had to guess, maybe this is Glorfindel. Glorfindel comes back from Valinor during the Second Age. Maybe this is him. He is this almost ethereal, angelic being when he returns. When you read in The Lord of the Rings, Frodo meets him, and he sort of sees him, and it does appear not just like what he looks like, but he sees this kind of like angelic being. So maybe that's who that is, but certainly looks like an elf, I would say, and it certainly looks like somebody who has a strong connection across to Valinor. The other one is somebody holding a scepter. Now, there are 2 scepters that we read about connected in with Numenor. There's the Scepter of Numenor, which is what the kings of Numenor carried. And then there's the Scepter of Andunia. I think that's how you pronounce it. And that is held by Elendil's line, his ancestors. They hold on to that. In fact, they carry that across, and that is one of the with them into Middle-earth, and that is one of the signs of the kingship that we then get carried on all the way through to Aragorn's time. So if that is what that is, I suspect we're looking at the hand there of Elendil, which would be very exciting. The character here, all in gold, with lots of bling on his fingers. I think that's almost certainly going to be Ar-Pharazôn, who we're told he was obsessed by gold. He wanted to accumulate riches and power. That looks very much like him. The character on the other side, again, it's quite hard to tell. One of these almost certainly will be Elrond. Does that look like an Elrond? I mean, your guess is as good as mine, I would say. The character on the right, the rather sort of plain, simple-looking character there with the orange sleeves, I don't know. We haven't got much to go on here, but I do wonder, one of these, as I said at the beginning, is going to be what we think of as sexy Sauron, or Sauron with a fair hue, as Tolkien put it. Sauron did not look like the evil, nasty, baddie lord for most of the Second Age. He looked nice, and so we should have somebody who looks ingratiating, somebody who looks not intimidating at all, but wise. So that is, maybe that's who we're looking at there. Then surely this is a dwarf. We've got what looks like it's a warhammer, perhaps. We've got the hands have got little bits of gold on them. That looks like a beard. Yes, we've got a dwarf going on here. Then we've got two other people up here. We've got somebody with a sword pommeled, a horse pommeled sword. This is too early for Rohan, for the riders of Rohan and the Rohirrim, but they do have antecedents. They do come from a people who are up in the north, so that's possible what we're seeing there. This is the other one, somebody holding an arrow, what looks to be almost wooden armor or wood effect armor. My guess is this is probably a Sylvan elf, one of the elves that are in what we now think of as Mirkwood, but at the time would have been Greenwood the Great. And we have the final two here, not so noble clothing. The nuts there, they seem quite large nuts, or perhaps they're quite small hands. Who can tell? But again, maybe this is the the seeds of trees like Nimloth, and this other character with some scroll with some marks on. Again, it's quite hard to say. We do have one other one that wasn't on this site. It has to be said, that was it looked like another dwarf king. Again, beard, very golden clothes, and sort of golden dust on his hands. So that's what we've got going on here. What does it all mean? Well, I think, as I said, for a lot of the these characters, we don't have much of a clue until we'll build up a lot more information as we go through. We should be looking out for rings. Quite a few of those characters did have rings on. This is almost certainly why they were showing us the hands. It wasn't just some weird hand thing. And also, it's worth, I think, noting this is the second thing we've had this year about the new TV show after we've had the name reveal of it. When we got the Rings of Power, that came about 2 weeks ago. Now we've got this. Coincidentally, in another 2 weeks, we've got the Super Bowl, as I understand it, and there are rumors maybe we'll get some sort of teaser trailer or something. Who knows? But from now on, expect for the next few months, every couple of weeks, more snapshots, videos, bits of audio, maybe an interview, things to just slowly build up interest and intrigue. We'll learn more and more about this world. We'll start to meet some of the actors. We'll start to hear some character names. So that, I think, is what is going to be happening over the course of the next few months. September the 2nd, this is going to be launching. When we get closer, then there'll be flurries of bits of information about it. But yes, certainly we're going to be starting for the rest of this year. The build-up has started as of now. In terms of the Super Bowl, it's up. I think it's some strange time in the morning as far as I'm concerned, so I won't be staying up for it, but I shall certainly be seeing whether or not there's anything when I wake up in the morning. And if there is something good, then maybe I'll even make a video from it. Mara Lee, thank you so much, saying just a show of love, appreciation and support for all the fabulous stories, merch and content that you provide on both your channels and merch shop. You are the best. Much love to you and gorgeous Dan the dog. Thank you, Mara. I hugely appreciate that. And all your support. You also did a super sticker. Thank you very much indeed. And let's have a look. I think I had another couple just to say. Roman Lakovets. Oh, this is Tinfoil. I will come back to that one when we're talking about that. And also Mr. E. Knight. Thank you. I'll pick up on that. I just want to see if there's any more questions or points about these pictures. Reflective Rambling saying, help support Robert's new chair fund. I do need a new chair. This is very true. I want to get one of those like gaming ones. I keep on meaning to. But yeah, that's maybe next month I will try to invest in that. The other thing I wanted to say, just in terms of an overview from those pictures, they told us that this was going to be showing us huge amounts of Middle Earth bits, areas that we hadn't seen before, and this does seem to be implying we will. We knew we were going to have Numenor. We're going to have the elves. Then they're going to be dotted around in various parts of Middle Earth. We'll have the Easterlings as well. If we're going to deal with Sauron, that will end up going down to Mordor. We've also got some intriguing. We've got some dwarves, and we've got that intriguing looking person who looks like they may be a Northman, a sort of a proto-Rohirrim. So this is going to be large scale. I think that's probably fair to say. Okay, I think with that, I will move on to back onto the tinfoil. And I hope you're impressed, by the way. This is the second time in a row I've managed, if I just duck my head like that, it looks like I'm sitting on the Iron Throne with a tinfoil hat on. Second time I've done that in a row. I'm very pleased. I'm getting good with this green screen thing going on behind me. Okay, let's go to some questions or tinfoil theories. We'll just start on them. As I say, I think I've got a couple coming through in the chat, so we will start with them. Roman Lakovets saying, not really tinfoil, but what do you think of Maester Aemon's The Sphinx is the riddle, not the Riddler? What does that mean? I know that many believe it refers to Aleras or Sorella, but she seems like a minor character in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, so there's a character down in Old Town that Sam comes down, arrives at Old Town pretty much his last action of the last book, so we'll be picking up on this. But we do meet these characters in the prologue as well. So we meet a few of these characters who are living around in Old Town, and one of these is this Aleras character, who almost certainly is Sorella, who is one of the Sand Snakes. So this is one of Oberyn Martell's children. If this is her, she has changed her appearance to make herself look like a boy, like a young man, because obviously in the Old Town they don't teach women, so she has to pretend to be a man in order to study, and she is studying that. And the Aleras and Sorella is obviously just the name backwards. So that is sort of what's going on there. When you're saying, what do I make of the Sphinx is the riddle, not the Riddler, then I think that is just a sort of a clever way of saying the point about the Sphinx, because this character is known as the Sphinx. The point about this is who they are, not what they're talking about or what they're doing. So that's the point. You say many people believe that, but that seems to be quite a minor character. Well, yes, but at the same time, this is not quite a throwaway comment by Maester Aemon, but it's not a comment that has huge amount of emphasis placed on it. So I don't think we should try and big this up. This is going to be an important important-ish plot point for probably the first half of the next book. So that's and then she will be heading back and linking across back into what's going on with Dawn. So she will probably escape as well. Mr. E. Knight saying Dunk and Egg eventually visit the Wall, which will happen before Egg banishes Bloodraven to the Night's Watch. Any tinfoil about that being premeditated? No, I mean, that sounds like good tinfoil to start with in terms of it being premeditated. So I think what it means is that Egg will... so Egg banishes Bloodraven. When he's king, he banishes Bloodraven to the Wall. And because Bloodraven, I mean, he gives the a guarantee to one of the Blackfires that they can come across and take part in this great council, and the king's guarantee that they will be safe, and he just basically completely goes against that. And Egg really doesn't have much of an option. He can't have people thinking that he'll allow somebody to be guaranteeing something in his name and then just ignoring that. So he sends him up to the Wall. Might this be premeditated on his part? I think it means he knows what the Wall is like, whereas most people in the Wall, who most kings send people up to the Wall, they've never been. So if he's been, we know that he's going to go to Winterfell. Whether he goes to the Wall itself is uncertain, but he will have an idea, and so he knows that it's not just like completely the end of the world with no chance of anything good coming from it. I think the bigger point is whether Bloodraven had planned this beforehand, and I think that is entirely possible that he gets to that, and as he's reached the end of what he wants to be doing down in the south, he then works out, well, what do I need to do? What's the best way to get up, back up north? Luke Draywalker saying, hello, Robert. Sorry for the off-topic question, but what do you think of the new Book of Boba Fett episode, if you've already watched it? Well, I won't do any spoilers for anyone in case you haven't watched it. I've not watched the latest one, although I've seen a few pictures, so I've had some things in it spoiled. I think I'm enjoying the Book of Boba Fett, is what I can say about this. As a whole, I wish that the episode that Boba Fett does not appear in, I thought it was good, but I want it to be about Boba Fett. That's just my general take. I'm very high. I enjoy The Mandalorian, but I do rather pithily perhaps wonder whether a couple of episodes of The Mandalorian in season 3 can be just handed over to be Boba Fett episodes just to balance it out. But yes, I'm enjoying it. No, I've not watched the most recent one, so I can't really talk about that. Let's go to a question from Diego Godoy. Hola, Robert. Hola, back to you. My question is about the not-so-tinfoil theory that Targaryens are genetically related to dragons. Particularly when rereading Daenerys 1 in A Clash of Kings, I was struck by something I didn't remember. Daenerys says that she gave milk from her own breasts to the dragons and they drank it. Do you think this confirms the theory that the both are genetically connected, or is it just a circumstantial event? Yeah, I'd forgotten that as well until you reminded me. I don't think it means anything. It means something symbolically, that she is the mother of dragons. So that's and the sort of the story there for those who are wondering was that dragons arrive, but nobody's told how do you feed baby dragons, what do you do there, how do you keep them alive, and it takes them a little while to figure out. You have to do burnt meat basically is what they like, but while they're figuring that out, then she's just given birth, and so she just uses the one thing that she can think of. So that's what was going on there, as far as we can tell. It wasn't emphasized in any way, but it's a symbolic thing, I think. And it's the equivalent. I mean, we drink milk from other species, that cow's milk and goat's milk and the like, that doesn't mean that we're genetically linked. So I think that although I'm now waiting for the chat to inform me of quite how close to goats and cows we are, I'm sure we're much closer than I imagine, but that does not mean that there's the sort of the bond that we're talking about between Targaryens and dragons. So Ben, question from one of my patrons, saying, not sure if tinfoil or just musing about something, could Maegor the Cruel's more extreme behavior be caused by a traumatic brain injury inflicted during his trial by the Seven? I was struck by a similar theory that Caligula suffered a similar injury during an illness, and if anyone is a Caligula figure, it's Maegor. Yes, so definitely he has got these kind of Caligula vibes. Caligula was a very cruel and ruler of Rome, and he was unpredictable. He would just go off into fits and bursts of energy and vindictiveness and harm people. So yes, Maegor does seem like that. He did get very badly injured in this trial by Seven that you're talking about there, and to the point where people thought he might die, but he then gets brought back perhaps by magic. So all of that is possible, but before that he was also cruel, I think, is the sort of the short answer to this. So before that we have stories of him he didn't like a horse got in his way, and so he killed the horse, and then a stable boy came running and he killed the stable boy as well. There are legends of him killing a cat when he was only 3 or something. So this is not just something which happened in the last few years of his life. This was a strain all the way through. It may have been made worse, and he certainly does seem even more cruel later in his life. But that's the long and short of it is he always was. Lyle Hammock, hi there, Lyle, saying, hello, Robert, just lurking and enjoying the tinfoil today. Although, do you buy into the Northern conspiracy idea? And also love your theory about Gurthang. Yeah, good. Well, thank you. It's I don't know if it counts as a theory yet, but it's just that's what it looks like. Which, incidentally, as we're on sort of the Song of Ice and Fire thing, this is probably something else that George R. R. Martin gained some inspiration from. Magical swords being forged from the metal in meteorites. They certainly had that in A Song of Ice and Fire, and they certainly had that in Middle Earth as well. So that's the thing there. In terms of the Northern conspiracy idea, I think it depends on what conspiracy we're thinking of here, because there are things going on. There's absolutely no doubt about that. When I kept on meaning to do a great Northern conspiracy video, sometime perhaps I will, but clearly the Manderleys are plotting to try and get the Starks back into Winterfell. We know this because we see what happened. They've sent Davos off to try and track down Rickon, because first of all they need a Stark. They can't get a Stark back into Winterfell. And where are the Starks right now? Well, Robb is dead. Nobody knows where Bran is. He's heard a rumor about where Rickon is. Arya has, the real Arya has obviously disappeared. Fake Arya is being used by the Boltons, and then Sansa is not really, as well as the fact that she was down in King's Landing, being a pawn of the Lannisters, and then Littlefinger. Nobody in the North would really trust her because of the letter that she sent, because of the fact that she was married to the Lannisters. So they have to find the Stark. So at the very least, we've got the Manderleys hunting for Stark and doing that behind the backs of the Boltons. But then you can add on extra layers to this as well. We know that there are various of the houses in the north seem to be working alongside them. That my favourite tinfoil, if it is tinfoil theory, is the snowmen. There's a lot of snow at Winterfell at the moment, a lot of snow, and the people are making snowmen, and on most of them are just down in sort of on the ground, but some people have been making snowmen up on the crenellations, up on the walls, so that people outside can also see them. And these are not just random snowmen. These are snowmen that are caricatures of the nobles in Winterfell. One of them, one Manderly, massive man, too fat to sit a horse, is what he's known. So that's obvious. But there are other ones up there as well, like Barbary Dustin. And the tinfoil theory that I like, as I say, is it tinfoil? I don't know. But this is people inside Winterfell signaling to people outside Winterfell who's on their side, so that when whatever fighting does erupt, they'll know those people are on our side, those people aren't. So that's the sort of the bit of the theory that I like. The deal that the Manderleys have struck effectively is that they will recognize Stannis as king if Stannis recognizes the Starks, gets the Starks back in. So this is where Wyman Manderley is now, or the Manderleys themselves. Wyman's slightly different, but the Manderleys are coming out with the phrase to where Stannis's army are. The Manderleys will almost certainly turn on the phrase, and they will join forces with Stannis. The real Rick saying the snowman conspiracy is practically canon. Yeah, I think so. I think it's one that a lot of people are buying. This is why I say, is it really tinfoil? Because we don't have any, there's no evidence for it, but it just makes sense. Okay, let's go to a question from Matthew Hawkins. Does Peter Baelish have either political or economic influence in Braavos? Would the Braavosi back him militarily in either the Vale or the Riverlands? Okay, so this is not as outlandish as it may sound. So House Baelish originally came from Braavos. It was Littlefinger's great-grandfather, I think, who came across as a hedge knight, and then there was a lord. I think it was his grandfather got made a lord. They got this. The Baelish land is very small. They are the smallest of the small of the lords in the Vale, but to recognize when they had to adopt a symbol, a sigil to recognize their Braavosi background, they adopted a picture of the head of the Titan of Braavos. So there is clearly a link there. And if you have a look at a map, if you try to see where is geographically the closest to Braavos, where in Westeros, the fingers is pretty much it. So yes, there is a whole possible link going on over there. And Littlefinger seems to know a lot about Braavos. He's the one who seems to know suspiciously large amounts about the Faceless Men. He also did get lots of loans from the Iron Bank. This is why the throne is in debt to the Iron Bank, because he decided to get loans from them. And that has led some people to think, well, could he be working for them? Could he be on their side? Could he have some influence there? My take is no. I think he is his own lone operator. He's doing his own thing, but he knows and will use Braavos to his advantage. Does he have some political influence? Braavosi politics is incredibly complicated, we're told. And even if he had some influence, it's almost certainly now about to change. There's almost certainly going to be a new Sea Lord happening very soon. Just picking up on the things that Arya hears, the rumors that are going around. So that if he had influence, then that could change completely. Would they come and support him? I think Bravos will work in Bravos's best interests, not supporting Peter Baelish per se. If he is working in their interests, then they will help him. But they're not there to do the things that he wants them to do. Gerard Heber just in the chat was picking up saying, my personal tinfoil theory, the heart of winter is not a physical place, but it is a sort of a plane of cold where the others draw their power and malevolence. I like it. So the heart of winter is only mentioned once. This is in a Bran early vision, and having come back from that, that's when Bloodraven, the crow in his vision, says, now you know now you know why you must become a wizard, basically. So Bran has seen it, which seems to imply it's a thing that can be seen, but exactly what it is we don't know, other than it being the home base of the others in some way, shape, or form. Let's go to a question from Seagreen Mango. I recently went through your If in Doubt Blame Bloodraven videos, which made me think about a couple of points of the show ending that don't work for me. Before the end of the show, I was absolutely convinced that Bran would never leave the cave of the Three-Eyed Raven. Even now, I'm not so sure. Given the current state of play in the books, I don't see how Bran gets to the south, and George R. R. Martin pays attention to logistical questions like winter travel time in a way the show never did. Anyway, do you think an ending for the books might have Bran be king as a new Three-Eyed Raven / crow, not actually sitting on the throne in King's Landing, but behind the scenes pulling strings from his cave in the north? Okay, so there's a lot going on there. I like the idea, but with some tweaks. Yes, you're right. George R. R. Martin cares a lot about logistical details, and winter travel is going to be very, very important. We're already hearing that the road from Winterfell to the wall is getting blocked. In Winterfell, it is so cold that all but one of the gates have frozen shut. This is seriously cold weather. This has to change, or otherwise nothing's happening, basically. So this does have to change. On the TV show, we got Melisandre, who did a spell to improve the weather. She sacrificed Shireen. There was better weather. That meant the Stannis could carry on. That didn't quite have the impact that perhaps it would have in the books, because they didn't show the same amount of snow, the same amount of cold on the show that is there in the books at the same point in time. If Melisandre does do some magic, probably including sacrificing Shireen, we know that she will do, that makes the weather change, and she says that she's feeling more powerful at the wall, then that would change everything, not just presumably not just what's happening in terms of Stannis, but it would then allow people to come down from the wall. It would allow Jon, the resurrected Jon, to head down from the wall to Winterfell. It would allow a huge amount of extra movement of people all around, particularly around the north, and possibly, although we don't know, maybe the wall will block it, possibly north of the wall as well. So that could happen. But I think that all the clues are that when Bran heads back, it's actually going to be through a cave system, a tunnel system. Now, in the books, he spends a huge amount of time in Hodor exploring all of these caves. So it's not just the Bloodraven's cave, the Three-Eyed Crow's cave is not just a cave, a big cavern. This is a cave system that goes deeper and deeper and deeper underground. And Bran has been exploring this. When you add that to the legends that there are passages underneath the wall, and then you also add in the idea that maybe the weirwood network is all connected. Each weirwood tree is connected to all of the other weirwood trees underground through their roots. And then you start to think some of these roots, the language that's used for Winterfell does seem to imply that there are actually all the wall has got, it's got this tunnel, but it's not, it's like almost a circular tunnel that is too small for normal adult soldiers to be going through, but children can scurry around it, which is what Bran uses. That might be, the implication is that might be a root from a weirwood tree. Winterfell is always, particularly in the early chapters, it is described with language of being a living being, about when the hot water being pumped around, the image is used of being like the blood pumping around a body. This is like a building, a set of buildings that is alive in some way. So if I had to guess, he's not going to go above ground, certainly for most of the way, but underground, which would be absolutely fantastic. Imagine if there's just like, or maybe there's like a river or something, and he can go that way. So that's how I have imagined him returning. The second part of what you're saying there, the idea of could he reign but not from King's Landing, I think it's entirely possible if we're ending up with the Bran as king ending, which I think we will in the books. It's possible that he might not rule from King's Landing, particularly if the Iron Throne has gone, but maybe he could rule from, I don't know, the Isle of Faces. It's possible. It's entirely possible. It's where he is not going to be so important. King's Landing is going to be largely destroyed. King's Landing, it's worth pointing out, we often think of the Iron Throne as being the symbol of Targaryen rule, as being this, when the Targaryens came, they invaded, they made the Iron Throne, and all that's, if you sit on the Iron Throne, you're the ruler. And then at the end, the Iron Throne itself, certainly on the TV show, and I suspect in the books, will be destroyed, marking the end of the Targaryen reign. King's Landing is also a Targaryen thing. King's Landing did not exist. King's Landing is the landing of the king, King Aegon the Conqueror, and it did not exist until the Targaryens were there. So King's Landing itself is wrapped up symbolically with Targaryen rule as well. Sam B, do you think we will get a fake out end to winter, i.e. Melisandre will do something powerful but it will not last? I've just been going through that, actually. Yes, I do. So I think that, just to clarify what I think is going to happen, is that the weather is going to get so terrible that Stannis and his army are going to be in danger of just freezing to death, quite literally. It's not just a matter of can they get to Winterfell, but it's like, can they even survive? And Melisandre, in order to save Stannis, then she casts this spell which requires something huge in order to push back the weather, to change the weather, something huge. And that's where the burning Shireen thing comes in. And also, I do wonder whether this might also be when Jon comes back, but I've gone off on that little thought exercise a few times. But yes, so I think she will do that. It's going to feel like the year of the full spring this is something it's a sort of an echo that we're going to have. We will have a period of time when it is possible for people to be moving around and things to happen, but then winter itself will come properly with a vengeance and with the others. Question from Reflective Rambling, picking up a question from Callie Summers. Thank you very much. And by the way, happy belated birthday, Reflective Rambling. It was your birthday the other day. I think it was on Monday, wasn't it? Thank you. You are an absolute star. If you are in the chat, Reflective Rambling is one of my amazing team of moderators. If you could show the moderators a bit of love and some belated birthday greetings to Reflective Rambling, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much. But question is, Visenya killed Magor with magic after she saved him. She made magic white like Frankenstein and destroyed it. Qyburn found her notes. Oh, this is interesting. So, the idea here is that Magor did die, and Visenya saved him. Visenya, there are rumors in Fire and Blood that maybe she was a witch. She did she sort of did nasty black magic. That there were rumors that this was how Magor happened to start with, because she wasn't having a child, and then suddenly she was having a child, and she wasn't the favorite wife in terms of sharing the bed with Aegon. So that was a bit of a surprise when that happened, and there were rumors that maybe there was some dark magic involved in that. We should take these rumors with a bit of a pinch of salt. The Maesters seemed any strong, powerful woman, they would say, "Oh, maybe she's a witch." This is just a default position for the Maesters, but it's possible. It's possible. And so this tinfoil is that he actually did die, and then she reanimated him and made like Frankenstein. She was like Frankenstein. He then is Frankenstein's monster. And Qyburn found the notes. So yeah, I like it. It's good tinfoil. I like it. I think my take on Qyburn had been discovering this, been researching the idea of life after death for all of his professional career, as far as we can understand. So this wasn't a new thing for him. What he needed was just the tools and the funding and the space to just try out his ideas. So I don't think this would be necessary for the plot to go forward. And I suspect, for me, also, it would slightly diminish his role, because I think that he is an evil genius, and yeah, he's evil, but he is a genius. And I think out of everybody, he seems to be the person who's figured out how this works. Whereas we get these people being brought back from the dead in some way, that's all done through magic, that's done through prayer, that's done through something that people can't quantify. He seems to have found a way that you can quantifiably do it. This is like, so that's why he is a science white. He's not a science white. He creates science whites. So that's Reflective Family saying, I already wished you I did wish you a happy birthday, but I thought if I can get other people to wish you a happy birthday, then that's a good thing. Okay, so let's go to a question from Sir Bunk the Lunk. What are your thoughts on Blackfire equals Longclaw? They're both Valyrian steel bastard swords, the only ones of their kind, and it makes sense to me that Bloodraven would do anything in his power to take possession of Blackfire at the Redgrass Field. No one's ever confirmed that Bittersteel actually took it to Essos. In fact, this would explain why it didn't show up in any future rebellions. Bloodraven could have taken it to the Wall with Dark Sister. And where do we find Longclaw? Buried in the Lord Commander's chambers, untouched for years, with the old, allegedly bear-like pommel burned off. Okay, good tinfoil. So, the idea that Blackfire is Longclaw, this is a few people who come up with this. I've seen this a few different times. And I can understand why people like this, because Blackfire is the sword of the Targaryen king. And if Jon is presented with it, even though he might not know that that's what it is, then that shows symbolically who he actually truly is, or what his inheritance actually truly is. So I get it. I understand that. I also understand the fact that Blackfire is missing, and then suddenly out of nowhere we go, aha, here's a Valyrian steel sword, which is a hand and a half sword. I think there are a couple of things that I would say to this. The short answer is I don't believe this personally. One of them is the timelines, and this is Blackfire disappeared about 100 years before this story, and we're told that the sword Longclaw was in the family, the Mormont family, for 500 years. So what does that mean? Well, that means if you're going to go with this, then you have to say, okay, so about 100 years ago, or however this happened, I mean, I don't know. You could argue this one a number of different ways. If you're saying literally Bloodraven took the sword and then left it up in the Lord Commander's chambers, then this is J.R. Mormont lying and completely barefacedly lying, knowing that this isn't his ancestral family sword, but still handing it on. That does make sense of where he might be handing it to somebody who is not a member of his family, but it just seems like a stretch. You have to believe that he's lying. You have to believe that the report of Blackfire being taken away over to Essos are not true. You have to believe that people cannot tell the difference, and we're told that even in a scabbard you could tell that this was Blackfire because it was so noticeable, so unique. So that is what's going on there, and people would be able to tell. You've got a blacksmith up the wall who actually worked on this to make it new and to make it ready for Jon. So this is, you have to have a lot of people all being very much liars or very much stupid. So I think that is my take, is no on that one. You did a second related one about J.R. Mormont. You said there is a great post on Reddit this week by Rohan Blackwood. I haven't read it, but I will shout it out if you want to go and check it, theorizing that J.R. Mormont took the Black because he fought for the Loyalists in Robert's Rebellion. Can you poke any major holes in this? The conventional wisdom that he simply wanted to hand Bear Island over to Jorah seems plausible, but unconfirmed and unprecedented. Yeah, it does. It seems plausible, and whether it's unprecedented, I don't know. But this did make me second guess myself, because I thought, I've always just assumed that he was there, that this was right. Is there a reason? So I went back and I did have a look to see where I could find any evidence. It is quite hard to find pure evidence, but then there is one, I think, pretty conclusive bit of conversation from early in book one, when Tyrion is up at the wall and he's there chatting with J.R. Mormont, Jeremy Riker, I think Maester Aemon is there as well, and they're talking about Alliser Thorne. And this Mormont says, Sir Alliser is an anointed knight, one of the few to take the Black since I have been Lord Commander. He fought bravely at King's Landing. And they then have this discussion about the fact, yes, but he was on the wrong side at King's Landing. He was there defending King's Landing for King Aerys. And then Tywin Lannister basically said, you could die horribly, or you can go to the wall. Which do you want to do? And he went to the wall. So Alliser went to the wall. And so J.R. Mormont is saying that happened while he was Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. So that was he was Lord Commander of the Night's Watch just after the the end of Robert's Rebellion, which, given the fact that you don't just go straight in as Lord Commander, you have to serve a bit of time and then you have an election. Almost certainly he was in the Night's Watch during the time of Robert's Rebellion. That's the implication we have to get, I think, from that. I think I had another question. Yep, from Ultraviolence, saying the Weirwood root system is completely interconnected, like the Pando forest in real life. Shade of the Evening trees are corrupt, disconnected Weirwood. Yes, this is tinfoil, but I buy into this one completely. So the Weirwood network being connected makes absolute sense to me. Many people have pointed this out, but it's true. Where are the Weirwoods not at? Where they are not at is where they can't get through mountainous terrain or over big bits of sea. Mountainous terrain, in particular, the Eyrie, we know, is right at the very top of a mountain. They tried many times to grow a weirwood tree up there, but it just would not grow, no matter how much they brought all the soil up. They did absolutely everything they should do, as far as we can tell, but it just would not work. And that is almost certainly because it needs to connect up to the weirwood network. You can't, it needs to sort of burrow through the ground and find the rest of the weirwood trees, otherwise it will just die. So there is that. Then we get sort of sea, and you'll find that weirwoods, obviously there are some on islands like the Isle of Faces, but when you get across the open sea, not just sort of inland lakes and things like that, once you go across the open sea to places like the Iron Islands, then you find no weirwoods. So this all kind of makes sense. The idea that the Shade of the Evening are corrupted, disconnected weirwoods, I do like this idea a lot. Now, how might that have happened? We know that at some point, what we call the Hammer of the Gods, the destruction of the land bridge between Westeros and Essos, that happened. How it happened, why it happened, is not really the point here for the moment. The point is that that would have, if it was as big and destructive as we're led to believe, that would have cut off Westeros and Essos. And if we say that, say, the heart of the Weirwood network is at the Isle of Faces, then everything in Westeros will survive and carry on and be okay. Everything over in Essos will no longer have the heart of, they will still be weirwood trees, but they will be sort of cut off and, as you say, corrupted. When you look at the Shade of the Evening trees, they are set up as very similar, but the polar opposite. And so they have got black bark, blue leaves. The drink that comes, that Danny drank and Euron has, that tastes and seems very, very similar to the weirwood paste that Bran drinks to open up his weirwood powers. Now, so that's the kind of the feel we've got going on here, that they are very like weirwood trees, but a sort of a dark, corrupted version of them, which would make sense if they've been cut off from the central weirwood network. I like it a lot. I don't think we can necessarily prove it, but it works for me. So yeah, good tinfoil. Let's go to a question from had one from Sam B saying, Nymor Martell's letter to Aegon the First Targaryen was a heads up that Rhaenys's body was being sailed back to Dragonstone. Yes. Again, I like this. I did a video on this ages ago. It's when Fire and Blood came out. If you want to go back and check this, what was in the letter. So for those who are unaware of the background to this, then the Targaryen invasion had been a success across the Seven Kingdoms, except not in Dorne. And they kept on trying to get dawn. But the Dornish would resist. They wave after wave of attack, and then they'd even send an army in to occupy, but then the army would sort of be destroyed or lost in the desert. The people would disappear. It was just not working. And then at one point, Rhaenys, she gets shot down over the Hellholt, and then obviously Aegon and Visenya go crazy. They go out attacking the Dornish, redoubling their efforts, but it's still not working. Then the ruling princess died, and we get a new ruler, Prince Nymor, and he sends what seems to be a sort of a peace offering. He sends the dragon head, Rhaenys' dragon's head, which obviously had been left there in the Hellholt, just decomposing. He sends the skull up to King's Landing with his daughter, suing for peace, saying let's just stop this war. And Aegon's trying to figure out what to do. Most people are saying, no, we should just carry on. And then she hands him a letter. This is the letter from Prince Nymor. Aegon reads it. They say that as he was reading it, his hand gripped the Iron Throne so tightly that it started to bleed. He didn't say what was in that letter. He got on Balerion. He flew to Dragonstone. He stayed there every night. He flew back and then said, that's it, we're going to have peace. So what was going on? What was in that letter? Nobody has read that letter. Your suggestion here is a heads up that Rhaenys' body was being sailed back to Dragonstone. That for me works. So we know that this letter, this was a peace offering in some way. He sent his own daughter up there with it. He sent the dragon head back. And this letter must have been some way of like making things better, some way that Aegon himself could find some peace and release from the anger about what had happened to his sister. So if the letter said something along the lines of, okay, so yes, she got shot down, and the house there that shot her down, they're pretty bad, and they did horrible things to her. They tortured her, but she died. All of this was being supported by my mother, who was the previous leader. She's gone. I'm here. I know I can't undo any of that, but I'm going to give you the best I can. As a gesture of my goodwill, I've sent my daughter has come up there. The gesture of goodwill, here's the dragon head. And as a gesture of goodwill, I know that you will want to be able to dispose of the body of your sister in whatever fashion you would like to do so. So I have sent it off to Dragonstone. It will be arriving today. That sounds right to me. That works it out. Because what happened afterwards was not... was that they got on. There was not just peace, but they got on after that. And so the theories which we've got around, so maybe he threatened him with the faceless men. No, they wouldn't have got on after that. That's not what it was. Maybe some idea of like anything to do with threats, anything to do with we will carry on doing this forever unless you change your mind. No, it has to be something connected with Dragonstone. It has to be something that was actually positive and healing for Aegon to make him be in a new place. So I like that. For me, that's not so much tinfoil. I think that's just a really good, solid theory. John Pierce saying, just sending love. Keep up the high quality Lord of the Rings and A Song of Ice and Fire content. Furthermore, I've heard you mention another channel. Can you repeat that so I can subscribe? Thanks, dude. Well, thank you very much. That's really kind. Yeah, in terms of my other channel, that's called The Well Told Tale. It's my audio narration channel. If you like classic science fiction and fantasy, that's what it is. I just read the best science fiction and fantasy stories ever written, in my view. So all of the classics, I'm just working my way through. We've done The War of the Worlds, we've done Call of Cthulhu, we've done I don't know, even things like Alice in Wonderland's there. There's Conan, just the absolute classics. So if you like audiobooks, if you'd like to go and check it out, The Well Told Tale is my other channel. So thank you very much for that. Matt Savino saying, do you think that Bran will return to Winterfell through caves that run under the wall and connect with the crypts? Yes, this is that I was talking about this a little bit earlier, but this will round off this theory. So I think that he will go underground. There's a cave under Bloodraven's cave. It's a cave system. I think he will escape out that way. I think he will come under the wall through the cave systems that's there, and then in terms of connecting in with the crypts to Winterfell, I do like this idea. I do like it a lot. The question is, where does it come out? Because they know the crypts, and the crypts, from what we've read about, they're very well maintained. The only bit that there's a bit right at the very bottom back which is blocked off. Could they go in that way? I mean, it's possible. I don't think that bit is necessary, though. I think for me, I think they're getting out of Bloodraven's cave, under the wall, then they can go above ground after that, particularly if, to wrap into another one of these theories, if Melisandre has made the weather much better, then that will be possible that when they get a bit further south. Sam B also saying about the letter, Nymore's letter. I figure it described the torture by the Hellholt Lords and asked for peace and forgiveness. Yeah, I think so. I think it was just a very positive letter. John Pierce saying your other channel. Yeah, thank you very much. So hopefully you've found that. Ethan S saying, is NQ, I think this is the Night Queen, a Stark whose access to Children of the Forest magic created the others. She's buried at the bottom of the Winterfell crypts, echoes Lyanna. No memory of her because her gender changed to the Night King. The original Bran the Builder is her son. Okay, there's a lot in there. Let's so is the Night Queen a Stark? Is she buried at the bottom of the Winterfell crypts? My take is that the Night's King is buried at the bottom of the Winterfell crypts, the bit that is blocked off. Now, the Night's Queen, I think, probably escaped off. I don't know, maybe that's what's at the heart of winter. But if this was a Stark, if the Night's King was a Stark, they say that his name was expunged from every record. And but if he was buried, all Starks are buried back under Winterfell. They wouldn't want anybody to see who that is, so they would block that off. Also, if you take one of my other random theories about the statues coming to life when the Horn of Winter has blown, the Horn of Winter was blown at that time. So the dead Starks, the Stark statues would have come to life then, and so that bit was no longer needed of the crypts. So that's a lot of random theories, all just sort of being pulled back into one. I'm not sure about the gender change to the Night. No memory of her because the gender changed to the Night King. Whether you're talking about that as in the stories were changed. This is, and the original Bran the Builder is her son. My take is, I think Bran the Builder was probably a little bit before that. But anyway, the gender have been changed in the stories. It's possible. George R. R. Martin tells us again and again, these are legendary stories, these are myths. We should not take the stories that we have as actually what happened. That's not what he wants us to do. He says these are legends passed down generation to generation to generation to generation, and so on, so on, so on. You should not take the details seriously. AJ800 saying, what do you think happened to Tommen II Lannister and Brightroar? Anything to the theory that they were captured by Volantis? Okay, so this is Tommen II Lannister, who went, excuse me for a moment, with Bright Raw, the Valyrian steel sword from the House Lannister, to Valyria, and he disappeared. Is there any chance that anything to do with the idea they might have been captured by Volantis? Well, they could have been, but I think George R. R. Martin, to show us quite how bad the Smoking Sea is and Valyria is, then he has had to create characters who have gone there in the past and just not returned. So this is one of those. Yes, maybe he was captured by Volantis en route. I don't think that changes much in terms of the story, except for possibly where Bright Raw the sword is. But the most likely thing is he just went. He went to where he said he was going to go to, and it was as bad as we think it is. David Thomas saying, just a gift and my thanks for your ongoing production of fantastic content, possibly towards the new necessary chair. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. I will get the chair, guys. Thank you. I'm appreciating the chair support. This one really doesn't work for me in terms of support. Right, am I caught up in the chat? I think I might be now. Okay, let's go to another question from my patrons. Bear Island says, hello, Robert. I hope you and Dan are well. We are, thank you very much. Dan has taken himself up to bed, which is very sensible. Do you think Doran Martell is purposely sending his oldest children to die? I think there's evidence, but I can't see why. Well, he certainly sent one of his children off to somewhere where he died. That's Quentin. His other daughter, his next oldest, Ariane, he is now sent off to investigate what's going on with Fagon. So, did he send them off to die? I would love to know what evidence you say you've seen the evidence. I can't see that. I haven't seen any evidence to suggest that he intentionally sent them off. Doran Martell seems to have one plan that's there all the time: marry the Targaryens, get the Martells married to the Targaryens. That this was Elia, obviously married a Targaryen. Then afterwards, he had this marriage pact between Arianne and Viserys. That stopped work. That didn't work. So he then sent off Quentin much later to try and find Daenerys. They can have marriage. That was his cunning plan again. That didn't work. Now he's sending Arianne off to have a look at this Fagon character. This is his general default plan for everything. Just marry my children and my family into the Targaryen family. So is it a deliberate sending them off to dangerous places? I don't think so. I think it's just that's where the Targaryens are. Personally, that's my take. But yeah, if there is evidence, I'd love to see it. Maybe he's running a game that's so subtle that I've completely missed it. Big Slop saying, new to A Song of Ice and Fire, love you. Oh, thank you very much. It's very kind. And question and welcome to the A Song of Ice and Fire community, I should say. It's there's so much out there. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Cash Dummy saying, if it turns out in the end that Arya will travel west, will she meet the children of the forest there? If you mean travel west on a boat at the very end of all of this, in the way that she did on the TV show, I think that we won't be told what happens. I think this is just going to be, and then she got on a boat, and that's the end of her story. I don't think we're going to have and then she went off and had these adventures. And discovered things. Will she find the children of the forest west? I don't think so. My take is that the children of the forest now are north of the wall around Bloodraven's cave, on the Isle of Faces, and maybe a few dotted about in random places we do not know, underground mostly, but not off to the west, which will obviously bring you around to the east. There were, if you go back into the history of Essos, there were woods walkers, I think they were called, who sound very similar to the children of the forest when there were forests over there, which also kind of fits in with this idea of that we were talking about a bit ago, that the shade of the evenings were like the weirwood trees over in Essos. Okay, that's, I think, me. C. McBroom saying Elia's marriage was arranged by their mum only after she couldn't get Elia married to Jamie. Yeah, so sorry, I wasn't meaning to say that Doran's plan, Doran was the person behind Elia marrying Rhaegar, but he certainly was happy with that, and then decided to try and marry his children in. Thought it was such a good idea he would marry his children into the family. 444 saying Tinfoil number 1. The arm of dawn was broken to stop invaders, not the first men, but roots of the shade of the evening trees. Or the arm of dawn was broken because of a simple misunderstanding. Trees just couldn't understand the concept of travel by sea and thought destroying the landway would be enough. Yeah, so my take, I like this idea of the invading shade of the evening trees. I think this is a fantastic idea, so this is another way, instead of them being corrupted weirwoods, this is now the children of the forest are just trying to cut off the shade of the evening so they can't come into Westeros. That's really fun idea. I don't think it was that. I personally prefer the idea that they are sort of corrupted versions, and so it goes the other way around. The idea that trees couldn't understand the concept of travel by sea and thought destroying the landway would be enough. The trees, it's not just the trees, obviously, it's the children of the forest as well. So it's the children of the forest who did the, what we're told anyway, the Hammer of the Waters magic. And they obviously themselves understand the concept of boats, because the Isle of Faces is an island. And in order to get there, you have to be on a boat. So I think not. I think I do like this, the trying to think of other reasons, other ways, other purposes for breaking the armor dawn. But I think it does just trying to stop the invasion of men. It'll get them some time, perhaps, was what the hope was. Question from Matt Savino. The Ironborn, Hightowers, and Danes are all from the Empire of the Dawn and fled to Westeros when the Empire fell during the first long night. Okay, interesting. So the Danes, I believe the story of the Danes is that they followed the falling star and they found out where it was, and then just set up house there. That works for me. Their colouring is the purple eyes is quite distinctive. That does seem to imply that they're not locals, so they have come from a long way. So I absolutely buy this. Said it echoes the idea of the Bloodstone Emperor worshipped a black stone that fell from the sky. They went and found a stone that, when they made a sword from the metal, was white. So it kind of balances and echoes that. So yes, I think symbolically, at least, they certainly seem to have come there. The Hightowers also came from there. Well, we don't know. The base of the Hightower seems to be the same sort of structure, roughly, as the Five Forts, all the way on the far east. I say seems to be because we've never actually seen either of them in the books from a person's perspective. We certainly haven't with the Five Forts. That just gets a bit of a mention in the World of Ice and Fire. And the base of the Hightower, we've not been there. Sam has just arrived in Old Town, but he's not been to the base of the high tower, so we don't know. But they sound saying the fused Blackstone. And certainly, I did write that video. I suggested I would do about Blackstone, so I just need to turn it into a video. So record it and turn it into a video. I don't know when that will happen, but keep an eye out in the next couple of weeks or so. There may well be a Blackstone video coming. So that does make a connection across. And House Hightower, if this is the same family who have been there all that time, which it seems to be the case, that would also put them as an echo across with the Great Empire of the Dawn. Whether that was they moved across when that fell, I don't think that's necessarily the most likely. The High Tower, the island, that Battle Isle, seems to have been there before all of this, so people would have had a base there. This seems to be what the creation of the base of the High Tower, that seems to have been there for a very long time. So I don't think they were forced to sort of escape. It was a planned thing. As for the Ironborn, my take is that they're first men and that they just went over to the Iron Islands, and that's it. I can't see a thing that makes it that needs them to be connected over to the Great Empire of the Dawn. I can't see that. Maybe there is some evidence I'm just not really noticing, but the Maesters seem to think that they might be first men, and it kind of works for me. Vera Glauben saying, "Hi Robert, there is a slight difference in a way Jane Westling is described by Catelyn, slender but with good hips, and Jamie, she had narrow hips. Has real Jane been swapped for her sister and had Rob's child?" Oh, I mean, good tinfoil. There is a slight difference. I guess it depends what Catelyn thinks good hips are. I think we assume that she would think wide hips are good hips, and Jamie thinks slender hips. It is a strange thing to have an emphasis on two different descriptions. I'd not picked up on that. I'd have to say it's possible George R. Martin does accept the fact that there are some small changes. He finds it very hard with this cast of thousands to remember the exact details about everything. So sometimes he does just make little mistakes. So it's possible that this is one of them. Could they have been swapped over? I can't see much evidence that that's what happened. I haven't seen any. No, I mean, I like the idea. This is a really good idea. And because this also brings into play the idea that maybe Rob has a son, which would add to it. But Jamie certainly seems pretty confident of who she is, and I think that he's not stupid or gullible. So there are plenty of other people who know what she looks like. Stuart, good lad. No question, just a thank you for your hard work. Loved the video about Pippin. Oh, I'm glad you did. That was a fun one to do. For those who missed it last week, I think maybe Monday, I did a video on how Pippin saved Middle-earth. So if you ever wondered how Pippin saved Middle-earth, it was just one of those fun things that I enjoyed doing. He seems to have been we often just diminish Pippin as just being a fun character, but actually had an incredibly vital role. So there's a sort of serious bit as well, not just me coming up with a crazy tinfoil theory just for the sake of it. Roman Lakovet saying, could Jeremy Lamont have been to the wall because he fought for Aerys during Robert's rebellion? Yeah, I answered that one a little bit earlier in the stream, actually. So somebody else was asking that. Who was asking that one? That was Sabunk the Lunk. Yeah, so I won't go through all of that again. So I'll just give you the highlight, which is that there's J.R. Mormont talks about when Alistair Thorne joined when he was Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, Alistair Thorne joined just after Robert's Rebellion. So I think it makes no sense there. And in that conversation, while talking about what people were doing during Robert's Rebellion, nobody said, hey, but Jorah Mormont, you were also on that side, which you would think they would have done in that situation. Okay, so that's, I think... Oh, I missed Chelsea Oliver's. Hang on, let me just quickly scroll up. Oh, here we go. Chelsea Oliver. Apologies for missing one. Could the dragon eggs Alyssa Farman stole be the same eggs Illyrio gave to Daenerys? I think they definitely are. I think I might have done a video on this one. So Alyssa Farman stole... This is back in the time of King Jaehaerys, stole 3 dragon eggs, and then she sold them to the Sea Lord in Braavos in order to get enough money to buy a boat that she wanted to sail west, sail around the world, go adventuring in. And she did that. She succeeded. She got the boat. She headed off west. Well done, her. Jaehaerys, however, then had this concern, an understandable concern, that previously the monopoly on dragons had been with the Targaryens. But if there were 3 dragon eggs now in Braavos, that opened up the possibility that Braavos might have dragons as well. And so he demanded to have them back, and they came to an understanding that they wrote off the crown's debt to Braavos, and basically said, Jaehaerys said, look, if I hear about dragons, then I'm just going to come charging on down, and this is going to be bad for you. But Braavos kept hold of these 3 dragon eggs. Now, what happened then? They disappear from history. But then Dany gets given 3 dragon eggs by Magister Illyrio. Now, where might they come from? He claims they come from the Shadowlands far to the east. Perhaps. But given that there are 3 dragon eggs very close by in Braavos, and he's got the money to buy them, it kind of makes more sense that that was it. Because it seems that the Braavosi kept hold of the dragon eggs, but thinking, hey, we might get some dragons out of this. But then they didn't hatch, and then the Targaryen dragon eggs over in Westeros stopped hatching, and a century or more goes by, and it's like, okay, actually, do we need these still? They're not going to turn into dragons. They are, at that point, as Dany describes them, although she starts feeling heat inside them, they are like stone. So people just think that they're pretty baubles. So it makes sense that they would sell them on. Why this is important, though, is that if you buy into this theory, which I do, that the Maesters poisoned the dragon eggs in Westeros at the end of the Dance of the Dragons to prevent there being any new dragons, if they managed to do that to all of the dragon eggs that they could get their hands on, then there are only 3 dragon eggs out there in the world that had not been poisoned by them, were the 3 that had already left Westeros a little bit before and were hidden in Braavos. And those 3 were the 3 that Dany ends up with. So it makes sense. This is why she gets full-grown, good dragons coming out from the dragon eggs, not the small, stunted dragons that were born from the dragon eggs back in Westeros. So the short answer is yes, I believe that one absolutely. It's beyond tinfoil as far as I'm concerned. I think I had another question to pick up on. Yeah, here we go. Fionn Murray. We're going to get another Jon chapter, like after he's resurrected. We don't get to see inside his head again. This would add to the whole idea of revived Jon not being the same as the Jon who died. Thoughts? So, Yeah, I've heard lots of people say we're not going to get another John chapter when he comes back, and it's possible. Certainly, George R. R. Martin hasn't reported in his various reports. Every now and then he does give an update. We're waiting for. He normally does one early in the year, give an update. He seems to have lost a close friend of his recently, which is probably why it's been silent for a while. But he does normally do a sort of an update on progress about once a year, and during those updates, often he happens to mention characters who he's writing chapters from their perspective. He's never mentioned John. Now, that might be simply because, obviously, from his book perspective, John has just died, so he doesn't want to tell anyone that he's writing John chapters, because that immediately says, oh, so John is coming back after all. I think most people have bought into the idea that John definitely is coming back. But will we get John POV chapters afterwards? We don't now need them, in the sense that John was, his POV was there to be showing what was happening in and around him. Now, that's how we could keep track of his story, because a lot of the time he was the only POV character in and around him. But now we have got a new POV character, which is Melisandre, who is there at the wall. I suspect we'll see a couple of Melisandre chapters relatively early, because all of the other people at the wall, Davos and Sam, have gone, who had POV chapters. John obviously is dead, so we won't get something from him. We will see something from Melisandre's perspective. He could carry on doing that for a while and then track down John down to Winterfell, and when he's in Winterfell we could have some combination of Theon and then, I don't know, Bran coming back and Sansa coming back, and we can see what he's doing without actually having his POV. But I think he likes doing John's POV. I think he does like that. What I would like, this is my, I don't know that it counts as a tinfoil theory if you're just talking about what type of chapter you would like, but that I would love if he does go, his spirit, his soul go into Ghost, which is what I think is going to happen. I would love a Ghost chapter. So we're seeing John's perspective through Ghost. That would be absolutely amazing. So will we get any John chapters? I think so, but George R. R. Martin has created a situation now where we don't have to in order to see what's going on with him. Kelly Johnson saying Dany is the reincarnation of Nissa Nissa. So we have so Nissa Nissa is Azor Ahai's wife, loved one, and she's the one that he stabs in the heart when he's forging Lightbringer and then pulls forth the fiery weapon. Is she the reincarnation? George R. R. Martin, I don't think, does reincarnation, so no. Technically, no. Might she be an echo taking on some aspect of that? Well, I think that she is possibly going to be an echo of both Nissa Nissa and Azor Ahai, which is a strange combination to be, but I think that she probably will end up being in that kind of weird position. C. McBroom, Tyrion Targaryen? Question mark. Has your stance changed during the reread? I think I did a video on this. Did I quite recently? I can't remember. I've said many times Tyrion Targaryen is the theory, and I might have a question on this from one of my patrons at the moment, but I'll talk about this now. Tyrion Targaryen is the theory that I have oscillated on the most. I've changed my mind quite a few times on this one, and so I think that there is evidence that you could take in different directions with it. As you were asking whether my view has changed with my reread. So I'm nearly at the end of book 1. That's where I'm at. And what I would say is that when you go back and I'm going through it deliberately slowly so that I can actually take a chance to chapter by chapter read each chapter, digest it, think about it. George R. Martin does write a lot of his chapters like short stories with a conflict and resolution, so it has its own little arc, and so just reading a chapter at a time does work really well. But anyway, that the first half of book 1 is very heavy on Tyrion Targaryen symbolism, or dragony Tyrion symbolism at the very least. What I mean by that is you get again and again and again him talking about dragons, thinking about dragons. He says that he used to dream about them. We get him remembering when he was in King's Landing and he hunted down the dragon skulls, and the language for him very different to Arya. When he goes down there, he thinks that they're beautiful. He loves being there. When Arya goes down the first time, she's hiding. If you remember, she hides there with the dragon skulls, and the language is completely different. It's like she feels like they're trying to attack her. They're scratching at her. They don't want her there. It is very different. So it's almost as if Tyrion fits in naturally well, and she doesn't. We also get a huge amount, about 3 or 4 chapters in a row, of Jon and Tyrion. We're very similar, us two. Some of it is Tyrion doing his little speech about all dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes, that kind of thing. But also we get there's a whole chapter when Tyrion, he's there at a campfire and he's telling Jon about how he used to stare into the fire for ages and think of dragons and imagine it was a dragon fire. And then at the end of the chapter, we close with this image of Jon staring into the fire, and it's like echoing each other. So the similarities, the links are being made again and again and again. But then it kind of stops. I'm interested to see whether this picks up again. It definitely does a bit later on. The idea that Tyrion is fascinated by dragons comes up when he's on the Shy Maid later. He's asked to, and he writes a book about all of his dragon knowledge. So that will clearly come in important later. But have I changed my view? I think I'm coming around to the view that he might be, but George R. R. Martin isn't going to do anything about it in this story. He's not. We're never going to learn for sure. It's never going to be a thing that was actually going to be a huge issue. It's just going to be left there as a possibility. So that's where I'm at with that theory at the moment. Is it might be true, but it's not going to impact on the story as a whole. Reflective Rambling just saying, does Tyrion find the dragon skulls beautiful because he relates? People see them as terrifying or monsters, as they do his form and figure, seeing beauty in the rejected ? There might be an element of that, but it's very clear that he was obsessed with dragons, and that's why he went down to find them in the first place. The question from Vera Glauben saying, thank you very much, saying, another tinfoil. I heard in an interview George R. R. Martin commented on no children can live in a shy, that those descriptions were given by people who'd never left Westeros. What can be there instead? Yes, so a shy, we're not going to go to a shy now. I think there was a time when George R. R. Martin was planning on Dany going there, but we're not going to go there now. So I don't think it's going to have so much importance. Yes, he does emphasize these kinds of things, is that the further east you go in the world of Ice and Fire, then the fewer people who have seen it from the west. And he likes this idea. He likes the idea that things should, the edges of the map should be a bit fuzzy because people haven't quite got that far. I think with a shy, then it's it's not that there's nobody has been there. So we've got plenty of characters who have come back from a shy in some way. We've obviously got Quaith, who was there. We've got Miri Deux, people like that. Lots of people have. Marwyn went there. Lots of people with who have been to a shy. It's just we haven't had the first-hand experiences of them, which means that the descriptions we have can't be too far wide of the mark. But maybe they're exaggerated. Maybe it's not quite as huge as we hear. Maybe it doesn't drink in the light like we hear. Maybe there are children, but you never see them because they're always inside. That kind of thing. But certainly a lot of the bits about, you have to bring in water, that is not just information from a shy. That'll be information from merchants who were thinking, well, maybe I could take water into a shy, and those kinds of decisions will be made in places like Karth, where more people have been to. So yes, he's obviously emphasizing this because he likes this idea of the edges of the map being fuzzy, the understanding being less the further away from your home you are. That's all part of his world conceptualization. But with a shy, some of it is probably true. It's just a matter of what. Chaos Ballerina, Malario, Part 1. Malario only left her kids to spy for the Martells in Essos. She previously threatened to kill herself if her children were taken away, possibly Septa Lemore or Quaith. Okay, so in terms of Septa Lemore, I've got a question about that coming up, so I will talk about that. I have to admit, on Malario, I'm not 100% certain on this one, so and I think you said Part 2, so we've got Part 2 of Quaith, or supporting Danny as an anti-slavery revolutionary. Ario Hota, I think this seems to be a slave made free by going with her to Westeros. She criticizes using children as collateral for debts. Yes, so I think I will come back to, if it's okay with you. Thank you very much for super chats. This is one of those ones where, and it happens every now and then, I'm having a mind blank on this one, and rather than give you a half thought through answer, I will come back and do this properly next time, if that is okay. Matt Savino just saying, a shy is actually the world's best kept secret. Probably has gorgeous weather and beaches, and they're just holding out. Yes, quite possibly. That's it's quite a fun thought. 444. Bran will visit the past to become Bran the Builder, and Rickon will replace Bran as the last Green Seer. Good tinfoil. I like it. I particularly like the idea because Rickon definitely does have some Green Seer talent about him. He was there when Bran wanted to go to the crypts because he thought he heard his father that being there. Rickon was already there and clearly had already been there for a while and was convinced that his father was there. So he also clearly has the gift. The idea of Bran going into past, becoming Bran the Builder, I don't like that myself. I mean, the idea that the Bran, he might have gone into and influenced things in the past, yes, but being replaced by Rickon, no. I think Rickon is going to die. Sorry, it's the Shaggy Dog thing. I can't get around that. And this was the one about Septa Lemore, which hopefully ties in Chaos Ballerina with what you were saying there. So Jake G is saying, I've read some pretty out there suggestions regarding Septa Lemore's true identity. Who do you think she really is? As a side note, I've just finished listening to the new-ish Lord of the Rings audiobooks narrated by Andy Serkis. They are so good. I've heard that about them. So, yeah, if you want a recommendation of something to listen to, that is good. I've not listened to them myself, but I know lots of people who haven't, so they're excellent. So Septa Lamore is on the Shy Maid. She's one of this small group of people who have been raising young Griff, who've been teaching him. She's been there for quite some time, it would appear. She's there talking almost as an equal to old Griff, who's obviously John Connington, and they sort of seem to be seeing this as a kind of a joint project on their part. Who might she be? This is a mystery because Tyrion, who is always the cleverest person in the room, while they're on the Shy Maid, they were going down the river. He slowly figures out who everybody is, one after the other. They might be pretending, but he gets it. He figures them out. But Lamore, he cannot. There's something he doesn't know what's going on there. Maybe if he'd made it all the way down to Volantis, something would have flicked in his brain and he would have figured it out, but he didn't, because he didn't make it all the way down there. But anyway, who might she be? Well, we have some clues. She seems Westerosi. She seems like this. She is a scepter, but she has had at least one child. Tyrion can see stretch marks. She certainly seems very at ease with her body and very happy for people, so not prudish in any way, shape or form. She seems very attractive. She seems in her 40s. Who might she be? Well, I've seen many theories. Again, I have got a video on this if you want to try and hunt that one down. I've seen many theories on this. And for me, they all seem that they all falter somewhere or other. But the conclusion I kind of reached, because people often come up with, maybe this is Ashara Dane. I think Ashara Dane somewhere else. Maybe this is, I've heard somebody saying this is Lyanna. These things none of these kind of work for me. There are also some very I was going to say obscure characters who get name checked. We also get Tyene Sand's mother was apparently a scepter. That's what we hear. So maybe that would kind of work. But then you have to wonder why she hasn't told the Dornish about what's going on. And also there's a hair color issue. So who might it be? I am of the opinion increasingly that this is a new person. Not everyone has to be somebody that we've already heard about. This can be somebody completely new. This could be somebody who just happens to be linked to John Connington that he knew. It could be somebody that Varys found. This does not have to be a major character from elsewhere in the plot now disguised as a scepter. This could just be a scepter who had a child, then became a scepter, then got recruited to do this. It's perhaps less tinfoily than lots of the other theories, but it seems possible, quite likely. Let's go to a question from Ben saying, "Hi Robert, could we have the doom of Valyria and the return of magic back to front? Maybe the release of the 14 Flames caused a massive disruption in magic that took 400 years to resolve itself. Now it's calming down, magic is returning and allowing the dragons to be born again. This is what the others could be reacting to." And then you also had another random thing. Speaking of the others, I had a thought about your water theory. Maybe water isn't a magical barrier, but a practical one. If the temperature drops around a White Walker, there's a good chance the water would freeze if they stepped in it, trapping them and stopping them going further, which is a fantastic mental image, the idea of one of the others stepping into the water and then the water just freezing around them and they're trying to pull their foot out. Love the visual. I think it's so the temperature isn't just literally just around their body that they're very cold. This seems to come in the area that they are in. When you get the prologue to book one, then you get the Night's Watchman can feel when it gets cold and then sees them. So it's like a distance away. So I don't think it's. I like the idea, but I don't think it's that. The running water, the open water, it just seems to me very much like this kind of Dracula kind of evil undead thing that George R. R. Martin is just building on. Traditionally, they can't cross open water, running water, so that's where that's coming from. But in terms of maybe the 14th Age, when the Doom of Valyria, it caused blew up. It caused a disruption in magic that is only now resolving itself. I mean, possibly. I think that the way that magic seems to work is you need a sort of a background level of magic, which then helps other magics happen. So when the dragons come back in, this brings magic back into the world in a way. But this, it doesn't seem to me, the way that George R. R. Martin talks about when Dany's three dragons are born, he says this is just like this, everything, all the spheres were in the right place, everything worked exactly right. This was a one-off event. It wasn't, he didn't say this could now happen because the 400 years are up and now magic can come back, anything like that. So my instinct is no. I like the idea, but I think what it did something very similar to what you're suggesting, which is that when all the dragons went and Valyria went, then that got rid of a huge amount of the magic in the world. So the ambient level, this is just a phrase I use, it's not a George R. R. Martin thing at all, but the ambient level of magic in the atmosphere went down because Valyria and the dragons were no more. And then when the dragons in Westeros all died, it went down even further. So it was only when dragons were reborn, Dany's dragons were born, that's when things like the glass candles could work again. And we hear about other people, other magic users off in Carth and places who can now do magic again. Question from Roman Lakovets saying, in his 1993 outline, George R. R. Martin talked about Jon and Bran becoming bitter enemies toward the end. I know the story has changed a lot since then, but could we still expect this? Sorry if it's a repeat question. It's not a repeat question. So this is the 1993 outline when he was starting to write book one. I think he'd done the first 13 chapters, and then he sort of bundled them up and wrote this letter that could be used to send off to potential publishers. And it's a 3-page letter that sets out what the plan is for the book. Now, a lot has changed. In fact, I'm sort of half writing very slowly. I'm half writing a video about this. So at some point, you may find, if you'd be interested in that, let me know if you're not. But you may find a video from me about this original plan and how much George R. R. Martin is sticking to it and how much he isn't. There are a lot of things there that are very, very different in terms of the interrelationships between the characters. What seems to be the same, broadly speaking, here we go, spoiling a video I've not even made yet. What seems to be the same is the high-level story and narrative. He talks about 3 big conflicts, the first being the conflict for the Iron Throne, the second one being the dragons, the third one being the others. And then at the end, this all sort of comes together and all of the different strands all come together in the last book and it gets resolved. So that high level abstract seems still to be working. What seems to have changed is what happens with the characters. Now, I do wonder whether some of the things that we see in the first half, when I was talking earlier about with Tyrion, this seems to be the chunk of the book that he, broadly speaking, had written and was sending out. So maybe he was thinking about later on, he doesn't quite go into detail, Tyrion having that dragon connection later. I don't know. But in terms of the Jon and Bran becoming bitter enemies, could we still expect it? I don't think so. Personally, I think we will see Jon and Bran back together briefly, but then they're going to have like the TV show had the Bran is not going to care about being Lord of Winterfell. I don't think so. That's not going to be an issue. So there's no problem going on there. Jon is not wanting to be the King of the Seven Kingdoms, so there's not going to be a problem there. So I can't see that there's a point of tension between them. Maybe there will, but I can't see it. The feeling is very much the Starks coming back together, and that is what I'm expecting to happen. So I think the answer is no, but I'd be very happy for people to suggest how that might happen, that the two of them might come into conflict. John Pierce, I may have missed it, but what is your thought on Ashara Dane? I'm in favour. Ashara Dane, I don't know. If you're asking where she is, what happened to her, what was her role, I can give you my high-level overview, but do have a look in my series of videos about Robert's Rebellion I did ages ago. I've sort of talked about her in a few different videos. Basically, I think that she was clearly in part of the inner circle here. She was lady in waiting to Elia. Her brother was best friends to Rhaegar. She was in this, and she knew what was going on. George R. R. Martin has said very clearly that she did move about during the rebellion. They have horses in Starfall and boats, is basically what he said. So yes, she could have moved around. So I think that she was probably quite an active participant in what was going on. We know that she ended up back at Starfall. This Starfall was almost certainly, in my view, this was the place that was supporting and supplying the Tower of Joy, because they were at the Tower of Joy, it would appear, for quite some time, and somebody had to be helping support them there. And she and her brother were in charge of that. But the main thing, I think, is that she and Howland became an item, Howland Reed. And where she is now is in the neck. Howland Reed's wife and the mother of Jojen and Mira. I personally think there's a lot of evidence for this. Go and I did a video about this if you're interested. So it's not, if it's the first time you've ever heard it, you go, what? That's a bit random. But there's a lot of evidence for this. That I'll pick out one, which is my personal favorite, which is when you get that story about what happened at the tourney at Harrenhal, and you get Jojen and Mira telling it to Bran, and they say this is a story that their father has told them many times. So this is a story that has come from Howland Reed, and Howland Reed has told his children, and this is a story from Howland's perspective, and he's called the Lad. Everybody else in the entire story is given nicknames based on their house sigil, something that along those lines. So you get the Dragon Prince, you get the I forget what all of the Starks have the wolf something or others, are the young wolf and things like that. And then one character is not given a name like that, and that's the Maiden, and that is Ashara Dane. And this story is, when you read it, you see actually this is this story about what Ashara Dane, who she danced with, what her eye color was, what she looked like. This is just basically the story of Howland saying what Ashara Dane was like, and in beautiful and astonishing, and all the people that she danced with. And this is the story he's told his children. This is the story he has told his children many, many times. And this is very, very, very weird if this is not about the children's mother. This reads like a How I Met Your Mother story. If it's not a How I Met Your Mother story, it's a here's a story I really want you kids to know and to understand and to memorize about how I met this really, really hot woman just before I met your mum. That seems weird to me. So that's the bit. It's hard until you read it and you go through it and actually understand what the story is. Once you do, it's hard not to see that as a sort of a How I Met Your Mother story. Otherwise, why tell your children? Sam B saying, in the show we see Cersei deploy the wildfire trap card. When and how do you see the wildfire being ignited in the books? I assume this is for you're talking about the Great Sept. I think it'll be the same. So there's this fantastic chapter in the books when Cersei decides that there's the Tower of the Hand, and she decides she wants to get rid of the Tower of the Hand, and she blows it up with wildfire, basically. And she's there and she's loving it. She thinks it's beautiful. She thinks it's amazing. Jamie comes over and Jamie's like, you right now, you're reminding me of Aerys II, the person who was wanting to blow up all of King's Landing with wildfire. So we're immediately getting this idea. Okay, so Cersei is going to be a bit crazy with wildfire, and we know that she, going into the next book, The Winds of Winter, Kevin Lannister has just been killed. She will take over effectively the leadership of the Lannisters in King's Landing, and the evidence has been planted by Varys that this was the Tyrells who did this, so she's going to want to get revenge on the Tyrells. She's also going to want to get rid of the High Sparrow. It's a very Cersei-like thing. When you add up all of these things, her blowing up the Great Sept with wildfire makes absolute sense for the books as well. Maybe it'll be slightly different. I'm sure it will be slightly different, but it all adds up. It makes even more sense in the books than on the show, actually. John Pierce, what is your thought on Ashara? I know conspiracy is high. Is she around? Oh, yeah, so I've answered this one already. Yes, she is. And another incident, I think, so Helen Reed's wife is called Gianna, Jyanna, and that could mean nothing, but George R. R. Martin loves wordplay. And what do you get if you have John and Gianna? So I don't know. It's possible. Kelly Johnson saying Lightbringer has a fragment of Dany's ancient soul. I mean, I don't know what you mean by the ancient soul. So Lightbringer was forged from the metal found in the meteorite that fell to Earth. So that's sorry, when I say Lightbringer, is betraying the fact that I clearly think Dawn is Lightbringer, the sword Lightbringer, because Dawn brings light. But so Lightbringer itself as a sword has a fragment of Dany's ancient soul. Well, I think metaphysically, perhaps. I don't think this is a key plot point for me. I don't think that works out like that. Let's go to a Lauren Mintz. I didn't see a question attached to that. Reflective Rambling saying Tinfoil Theory, Robert is an organized chaos guy who has piles of notes on videos that he frequently has to protect from Dan's zoomies. That's not tinfoil, that's just fact. If you could see the piles of things I've got going on around the place, then yeah, that's how I am. C Star saying George R. R. Martin's inspiration for the Night King may be Prince Peter of Portugal. He dug up his dead wife, Ines de Castro, and placed her body on a throne and crowned her queen. Wow, I did not know that story at all. Thank you very much for that. Quite gruesome, but thank you very much for that. Jamie McKenna saying, hey, I finally made a live stream in 2022. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday to you too. Great to see you. And Cole Castnight reminding me, this is a simul stream, my word of the year. Simul streaming on Twitch. If you find it easier to watch this on Twitch, go ahead and find me on Twitch. I'm answering questions here on YouTube, but if you find it easier to do things on Twitch, then please do go and check it out over there. Matt Savino, do you think that the people living in the city of the winged men are byproducts of blood magic experiments or possibly even wargs? I'd love to hear your thoughts on Kadath as well. Oh, well, Kadath is maybe one I will have to definitely come back to. I'll have a couple of things to come back to next time. I think this is one of the wonders of doing tinfoils is that people's tinfoils are stretch over the entire world of A Song of Ice and Fire. But in terms of City of the Winged Men, so this is I think George R.R. Martin's what I was talking about earlier about the fuzzy borders on the outside. The further away from Westeros you get, the less we know. So we get more and more mysterious, crazy, outlandish things. Some of them might be true, some of them might not be. A city of winged men, maybe they are a form of genetic experiment. That is entirely possible. This does seem to be something. This isn't just something the Valyrians did. They seem to have picked this up from earlier civilizations. So it's entirely possible that that's what's going on. But also, it's entirely possible that you just get some random reports of some humans who've discovered some, or as you say, some wargs or some humans who've discovered some way to sort of skydive or something. I don't know. That's the fuzzy borders means that this could be anything, and we're not going to find out. But my instinct is it's probably wargs. That's the most likely, I would have thought. Let's see if I've got any more. Jeffrey Gunn, thank you very much for the super sticker. Thank you very much. And Kelly Johnson saying Mushroom taught Rhaenyra the business. I think Mushroom would claim anything, wouldn't he? No, I don't personally. I don't think so. I love having Mushroom as part of the stories. It adds an extra layer to it, but I think we shouldn't take everything he says as being entirely correct. Let's go to James F. Parham saying, I know you think the mountain doesn't have a head, but if he did have a head, whose head would it be? Okay, so interesting question. So the zombie mountain, Robert Strong, we don't see when he comes back. He's always got his helmet on, and it's dark in there. You can't see eyes in there. People never see him eat or breathe, and we know that the mountain's head has gone to Dawn. That's so the skull has gone over there, which incidentally there's a sort of an echo there when I was talking about the dragon head being sent up from Dawn up to King's Landing. This is the mountain's head being sent from King's Landing down to Dawn. It's a kind of an echo of what was going on there back to Prince Nymore's time. Now the idea also, I'm just stretching my memory for exactly what it is. The idea also that he doesn't have a head does come from I think it's Bran's first proper vision, and he sees everything out in the world. Basically, he sees where his siblings are, he sees what's going on, he sees that they're in danger, and he sees a mountain, and it's just blackness there. That's another hint, I think, that George R. Martin was always planning for him not to have a head. If he does have a head, though, whose head would it be? Qyburn has been taking people down to his secret evil laboratories for the last book or two, and one of them, he will take his pick from any one of those heads going down. That is my general view. Kelly Johnson saying Berserker John is a match for Khal Drogo. So Berserker John, for those who are unaware, this is very clear in the books that John has got anger management issues. They did a bit on the show and it makes more sense when you think of it this way. When he rushes out to try and save Rickon, that's because he's being goaded, because Ramsay knows he's got anger management issues. In the books, he's it's really quite noticeable. There's one time when Alistair Thorne, he basically just sort of mutters an insult about Ned Stark, and then John just goes for him, and he gets his knife out, and it takes 4 people, I think, to just hold him back. And this is, first of all, this is like, wow, huge overreaction. He was literally going to stab Alistair Thorne, presumably to death, for saying a nasty thing about his father. And then, so first of all, that's an overreaction. Secondly, 4 people holding him back. Yes, John's strong and he's fitter than the rest of them, but that does certainly seem to imply that he has some kind of a berserker rage. So could he take on Khal Drogo? We'll obviously never now find out. But the point is that he fits into Dany's type, as it were. Her type seems to be this kind of very independent leader who's good at fighting. That's the people that she actually seems to find attractive. Connor Walsh, Jaime's gold hand comes to life in a burst of flames as he chokes Cersei to death. 2 prophecies for the price of 1. Wow, great imagery there. So he chokes Cersei to death. This is the Valonqar theory, and also his hand comes to life in a burst of flame. I assume this is Azor Ahai. Yeah, great, love it. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but really good theory. Reflective round, been picking up Lauren Mint's super chat. My question is about Patchface. Do you think he is an agent of the drowned god, or perhaps something else? I don't think George wants to confirm real gods. No, he doesn't want to confirm real gods. He's not going to show us real. We're never going to see them. He's confirmed this, and we're never going to have any direct interference by the gods. Is Patchface a servant of the drowned god? So the drowned god is an Ironborn thing. There are many water-based deities. The Merling King, for example. There are lots of also Mother Royne is also a water-based deity. So there's more than just one water religion. I don't think that he's been sent back by the gods for any particular reason. I think that, yes, there's clearly something magical going on there, but I think he's just operating now on a slightly different plane to everyone else. I don't think he's doing this on behalf of a god. Mods, thank you very much. You're doing an excellent job again today. Let's go to a question from, this is 444. In Rob's will, there is not only John, but a whole line of, this is a tinfoil theory. In Rob's will, there is not only John, but the whole line of succession, including cousins in the Vale mentioned by Cat. The exact wording of this document will be revealed before the resurrection of John, and when the other Stark children will be presumed dead or missing, resulting with one of the Vale cousins being at least temporarily Rob's heir. Yeah, I mean, that's entirely possible. So when Rob's will is discovered, then presumably this will legitimize John, and then it might also has to have this kind of idea of, if not him, then who else? There's probably a good, what the next one, he will be very concerned to have to make sure that there is a Stark in Winterfell. So who would be next in line afterwards? Well, yeah, possibly he would go with some of Kat's family, but maybe, I mean, would random cousins out in the Vale be next in line? I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. The issue, though, that I definitely would agree with is this idea of there will probably be another person who's added in. The succession, the Stark succession, is going to be lots of people potentially being the right candidate. If John is named in Rob's will, then everyone says, yes, John surely must be. But then John died. And also John turns out not to be actually who he's supposed to, people think he is. So does that mean he should be? What about Bran then? Bran's the heir presumptive, but what if he doesn't want to do it when he comes back? At the moment he's completely missing. What about Rickon then? Rickon then maybe dies. What about Sansa? But Sansa is married to Tyrion, but what if that gets annulled? It gets very, so there will be lots of different people with lots of different views, and it's really a matter of whose claim gets pushed the most. Question from Shetland Apache. Varys's little birds are mute because he skin changes into them. Can you change my mind? I'm not here to change your mind on it. I think they're mute because their tongues are cut out, is my take. I don't have at my fingertips a quote for that, but he doesn't want them saying things. Skin changing into them, where we've had no other indication that he can skin change. And this is, I think, shown by the fact that he's become a master of disguise. If you can skin change, why would you bother being a master of disguise? You could just become somebody else. So the idea of him skin changing into all of the children who work for him, I don't buy it personally. I like the idea. The Varys, I think, he's just Varys. That's it. I don't think that he's a special magic person. Sam B, what is your favorite Euron tinfoil? My favorite Euron tinfoil is that he, and I say this is a tinfoil because this may well happen, but we're nowhere near that point in the plot to be able to say that it's anything other than tinfoil at this stage. That the battle that we have in the Dance of the Dragons, the battle over the God's Eye between Aemond Targaryen and Daemon Targaryen, two dragons, and fighting each other, and basically everybody dies. And Aemond is Aemond One Eye. Aemond is the person who is therefore going to be taken. Euron is going to be taking his role effectively in a recreation of this, fighting against Jon above the God's Eye on Dragonback. The reason why Jon is then being Daemon Targaryen is because Daemon's body was never found, because Jon will emerge and survive. Both dragons will die, but and Euron will die, but Jon will survive. That's my favorite tinfoil about Euron, where he's going to end up. Kelly Johnson, the Rhoynar had water magic to counter Valyrians. Yes, I don't count that as a tinfoil theory. I count that as just a fact. Whether they didn't have it in order to counter the Valyrians, but they did. Agree Weirwood saying we could use a Rob's Will video. Well, maybe I'll do that. I'll add that one to the list. Thank you very much. Shetland Apache saying, oh yeah, that's the one I've just done. Let's go to a question. Mara Lee saying, is the High Sparrow really Howland Reed? I've seen this a few times. Hi, Mara, by the way. I've seen this a few times, and I have to admit, and I know, Mara, you are putting this there as theories you've heard out there rather than anything you're necessarily particularly believing in yourself. I've yet to see any evidence that suggests that this might be true, other than I think a few bits of language about sort of connected to woodland or something when describing the high sparrow. I don't see how this advances what Howland Reed wants, what Bloodraven wants, what the Weirwood Network wants. I don't think this helps at all. So I can't see that in terms of a motivation. And I haven't seen any reason to think, given the fact that Howland definitely seems to have been in the neck until the equivalent of the beginning of book 2, because he sends his children up to Winterfell. So doesn't quite work for me, I have to say. Lornduck 20. Hello, Robert. Is Maynard Plum actually Bloodraven? Yes, I think so. This is from Duncan Egg Story, The Mystery Knight, which is aka the Second Blackfire Rebellion. And in that, Duncan Egg turn up for this tourney, and they sort of stumble into this plot to have a full-scale revolution and install the Blackfire heir onto the throne. Now, there's a character there who they meet called Maynard Plum, who many people believe is Bloodraven. I definitely believe he's Bloodraven. Bloodraven does appear at the end. He seems to know everything that's been going on, and Maynard Plum has disappeared by that point. So, point number 1. Point number 2, he says things like, I'm trying to work out why you people are here. What role have you got going on here? Which is a sort of a strange thing to be saying. Then you get this wonderful line when Dunk says something along the lines of, well, all of these children of Aegon, they seem to be everywhere. Maybe we're all children of Aegon. And Maynard Plum goes, well, maybe we are. And of course, if he was Bloodraven, then he would be. And then finally, we get this bit, and I've actually cut and pasted it here, where Dunk looks and he says, this close, there was something queer about the cast of Sir Maynard's features. The longer Dunk looked, the less he seemed to see all. The less he seemed to see. So the longer he looked, the less he seemed to see, which sounds like maybe he's got some kind of magic on him that is sort of changing his appearance. So yes, I think overall he definitely is. Jeffrey Gunn saying, may have covered this, but did the Maesters perhaps lie about Elia Martell's inability to have a third child? Well, interesting. So she was told that she could not have another child, but nothing seems to suggest that this is not the case. So they wouldn't have been too worried about having more children, but she was very frail. The second pregnancy and birth left her bedbound for a long time, and so this seems to all tally up. Everyone thinks of her as being a very sickly woman. They say it in various levels of disdain about her, which always makes you feel a bit sorry for her, because it sounds like she was actually quite a nice person. But anyway, might the Maesters have made that up? I struggle to see the reason why they would want to, unless they were concerned about prophecy or something like that Rhaegar was clearly trying to pursue by having 3 children. But I don't think they thought that was when magic has gone, magic has died. I don't think they were worried about that in the slightest. Kelly Johnson saying the children sung the deep ones to sleep, possibly. So the deep ones are mysterious old Lovecraftian kind of creatures who are around. We hear about, we've never seen. Austin Flowers saying Jaqen was hired by Littlefinger to kill Ned on the way north. I consider this iron foil. Absolutely, I've done a video on that one. I'm completely, yeah. That's why Jaqen Hagar was there. Lornduck20 saying during Bran and the company's trek to the wall, Bran sees people watching them while he's walking into summer, and they also meet a Liddle while in a cave. So why is it that we never hear rumors and gossip that Bran is alive? And would this cause any chaos if or when the North choose a new leader after the Boltons are defeated? So yes, they do. A Liddle this is one of the mountain clan houses that's there in the north of the North that are, yes, they sort of technically fall under the Stark remit in the North, but they kind of are let to rule themselves. They don't view themselves as being houses. And so anyway, one of these people is hiding in a cave when it's raining, is hiding in a cave, and then the gang all sort of come in and they share a meal, and then in the morning this person's gone. And this person has obviously seen them all, and Bran is pretty sure that they are, that the Liddles and the other mountain clans have spotted them heading north. Why doesn't that rumor come out? Because they don't mix with the outside world. That's the point about the mountain clans, is that they just do not. The interesting thing, though, is that Stannis went through there collecting them for his army, so maybe something will come out that way. But no, they don't. They don't talk to people more widely. And would it cause any chaos even when the North choose a new leader? It would add to confusion. Who's alive? Who's dead? Is Bran is thought to be dead, but if he's alive, where is he? This will get very confusing. When the Boltons are kicked out, who actually is the Stark we're going to choose to be the Stark leader is going to be a big issue in the next book. Edward says, I hope this goes towards a better chair. Well, thank you very much. I have to buy a chair now. Why would Bloodraven make strong Belwas eat locusts he knew to be poison? Seems unnecessarily cruel. So, Bloodraven, I know when in doubt, blame Bloodraven. We can't blame Bloodraven on this one, unfortunately. So, strong Belwas ate poisoned locusts that were presumably intended for Dany. At least that's what we're told. Well, I mean, tinfoil that Bloodraven was involved. No, this is not an attempt to kill Dany, as far as I can tell, at all. She doesn't eat that kind of thing, and she just picks at stuff she eats. I can't remember who did it, but somebody has done a fantastic breakdown. You find people who go into so much detail out there with a fantastic breakdown of what Dany eats. And if you go through it, you'll find actually she eats very plain food. She'll have some flat bread, maybe some olives, maybe a glass of wine, but she doesn't do things that are very spicy, full of flavor. That's not really what she likes eating. So the idea that dropping some spiced locusts would be suddenly the thing that she would want to be eating, somebody who doesn't know her very well. Okay, let's go to Mara Lee saying Winterfell. This is another theory. Winterfell is Lightbringer. Now, I have come across this theory before. The idea, and I've seen it. Justin Thomas, friend of the channel, he did a video on this, I think. The idea is that thematically, what happened with Lightbringer way back was, first of all, the idea was to try and temper it with water. That didn't work. The second thing was to try and temper it with a lion. That didn't work. And then thirdly, the third thing did work. So what's happened with Winterfell? Well, it has been tempered, if we're using this analogy, firstly with water. The Ironborn took it. Secondly, with a lion. The Boltons, backed by the Lannisters, took it. What happens next? Lightbringer gets forged. Lightbringer is the thing that ends the long night. So the long night will end at winter, which can tie in as well to this idea of Winterfell is called Winterfell because that's where winter fell, when winter ended. And all of the old castles there got very blunt descriptive names. Storm's End is where the storms end. Hightower is a high tower. Winterfell is where winter fell. So that's the idea behind it. Is it? I mean, I think this may well be one of these kind of layers that George R. R. Martin adds into this. I don't think this is the main thing in terms of. I've said for a long time now, long after these books are finished, we will still be debating who Azor Ahai is or was out of all of these characters, and people will be able to see different things. And that the same will go for Lightbringer, in my view, is that there will be certainly a sword that we will go, and I think the sword will be Dawn, that we will go, aha, that is the most likely thing to do it. But there will be other things that you could say it wasn't just this one physical sword, it was many other things going on. David Oliver saying, I've just spent all week feeling unpleasant since testing positive for COVID-19. Was really sick, but now I've got no symptoms and can go back to work next week. Glad I'm better. Well, I'm really glad you're better. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm really sorry to hear that you had it, but sounds that it wasn't too bad, but unpleasant for a week, and being sick is not good. So yes, I'm glad you're better. Let's go to Catherine Furseth. Hi, Robert. What goes on in the High Tower? Is there a mystery connected to House Hightower, or are they just what they seem? Clever political operators, always deftly positioning themselves on the winning side, securing their own survival. Or do they have another higher purpose? The saying goes that you can see the wall from the top of the High Tower, although this must surely rely on magic or science in some form. What does this mean, do you think? Does it tell us that the High Towers possess knowledge others do not? I think so. I think and I was talking about House Hightower a little bit in the last time I had on the Song of Ice and Fire live stream, because we were talking then about Alicent and Otto Hightower. Now, do they possess not what so the house words are we light the way, and what I was saying then was, which I think is true, is that it's not that House Hightower, they're not the people whose role within the story is to be going out and doing the things, but they will help show what needs to be done. We light the way, and that is partly through the knowledge that will be gained from the Citadel, and probably also the knowledge and understanding that will be gained from the High Tower. The fact that you can allegedly see the wall from it, I would agree. I don't think it's a physical thing. I think they probably got a glass candle there. I think they can probably see what's going on around the much wider world. Somebody needs to start joining all these dots together in this story. Somebody needs to start saying, okay, so there's some others happening up there. There's dragons happening over here. This is what's going on with Euron. At the moment, there's lots of these different bits and pieces happening, and nobody's got all of the information and understanding. That's because the story is at its widest at this particular moment in time, which incidentally is at least part of the reason why George R. R. Martin, I'm sure, is taking such a long time writing this next story, because the story is so huge right now. But it is going to start collapsing in on itself. Things are starting to draw together from this moment onwards. And in order for that to happen, people need to understand and communicate. and House Hightower will show how that's going to work. So that is what I think that is. What is going on in the Hightower? I think Leighton is just gathering information, and the what you say, being canny political operators always definitely positioning themselves on the winning side. I think that's what's going to. Once he's figured out what to do, then they will go and do that thing, and we all have almost written off Old Town now. I think a lot of us in the community say, "Well, Euron's about to attack it. It's gonna go down." It might not be quite as straightforward as that. There'll certainly be a battle. I think that the image of the citadel burning is very, very strong one, but this is not going to be a pushover by any stretch of the imagination. Maybe this will be the thing which convinces Euron that he should go off and try and join forces with Cersei, because it wasn't as easy as he thought. Angela Marie Young saying, hello from small town Nebraska. Hello, small town Nebraska. I want to start by saying thank you. You're very welcome. Have recently decided to read the Witcher books. Would you recommend reading them in the order they were released or chronological order of the story? So just to pick this one up before you go into your other bit of question, with the Witcher books, you've got two books of short stories. You've got the main novel series, which is 5 books, and then you've got a standalone novel, Season of Storms. Now, do the short stories first. Start with The Last Wish and then sort of Destiny. They give the background to everything you need to really understand. It's a lot of that went into season 1 of The Witcher, if you watched that. But this is the creating the mythos, the understanding the links between the different characters, so we understand what's going on. The standalone novel is at that period, set broadly in that period of time, but it was written afterwards, and it's sort of a farewell to the character in a weird way. And so you can read it then or at the end. But short stories first, then you get the novels. I would suggest, short stories, the 5 main novels, and then you can do your standalone one after that. And then you're asking about Bran and whether or not he contributed to the Mad King's descent into insanity while visiting the past from the Three-Eyed Raven's cave. I've heard the theory that he might have an incident similar to Hodor's Hold the Door moment, with Aerys repeating burn them all in the sack of King's Landing. Do you think we will see this or something similar play out in Bran's story? Now this I've got some history with this, because one of the earliest videos I made, I think I did put forward this theory within the context of the TV show. Because in the context of the TV show, burn them all, yes, that's what he says, and it's very much like hold the door. It has that echo to it. And clearly Bran could go back in time, and clearly he might have an interest in trying to persuade the king that, we've got these others, the White Walkers are coming. What do you have to do? You have to burn them all. Can you mobilize the 7 kingdoms? Actually, all I've done is send him a bit crazier. That all kind of worked in as a theory at that point in Game of Thrones. However, the fact is, in the books, that's not what Aerys says. He doesn't endlessly repeat burn them all. In fact, he gives some really quite eloquent speech, from what Jamie says anyway. Jamie's our main witness to this, all about let him be the king of ashes and things like this. It's actually quite cogent. He's clearly not all there anymore. He's clearly wanting to do things which are terrible and horrendous, but it is not just the repeating one phrase over and over again. So in the books, no. Does that mean that Bran or anyone has never gone back to try and contact him? No. It's entirely possible that Bloodraven might have done that. He talks about trying to change the past, but so it's possible. It's more likely that he went back and tried to talk to his own siblings, but he says you can't do it, which seems to imply that he's at least tried. So will we see it in the books? I don't think so. Reflective Rambling, picking up a question for Bryson Chung, thank you very much, saying the Iron Islands were once the furthest eastern outpost of an empire on a continent in the far west, which sunk, leaving behind the 3 islands in the Sunset Sea and the Seastone Chair. Yeah, I like this. It's nice. So the Seastone Chair is, and so my Blackstone video will talk about this. So the Seastone Chair is from the oily Blackstone, which is different to the fused Blackstone. Now, the oily Blackstone, we have 4 mentions. We've got the Seastone Chair. We've got the Toad statue, I think it is called, on the Isle of Toads. We've got Ashai, and we've got the city of, forgotten that off the top of my head, but Sothorios. So this is scattered across the globe, basically. But the biggest things are cities. Now, we've already talked about the fact that people were traveling around to Westeros at that time. The High Tower has clearly been there for a very long time as a trading post, so people were traveling around. So it's entirely possible that this was just, the Seastone Chair was there when the Ironborn arrived on the Iron Islands. It's entirely possible that this was just something that they happened to have taken with them. Sounds a bit weird to have taken the whopping great big throne with them all the way around the world, but who knows? The idea that there was some sunken empire, so what would you say, a continent in the far west which sunk, leaving behind the 3 islands in the Sunset Sea and the Seastone Chair, is possible, because it's more likely, given that this is, whichever culture this comes from, is definitely associated with Ashai, in my view. Ashai is very probably just around the other side if you keep going. So it's more likely that they went across that way, east from Ashai, rather than west all the way and around. Is it? So it strikes me it's maybe not a sunk continent, but the eastern end of an empire that was there that then died. And I think that ties in with what I think the oily Blackstone is, but I shall leave that for once, unless I get asked direct about it in a moment. But for once, I shall try not to spoil a video which I've got coming out soon. Let's have a Yeen, says someone. Yes, thank you very much. That was what I was trying to think of. Kelly Johnson saying, will Danny John Sansa love triangle come into play? No, I'm pretty sure not. Ramon Cavalcanti saying, greetings from Brazil. Greetings, Brazil. I'm curious about your thoughts on time travel, Bran. Personally, I find this difficult to be explored on Hold the Door, and not have some greater importance in the story. Okay, so it will have importance in the story. So time travel, Bran has done it, will do it. It definitely will have some impact there. Hold the Door is an important moment. Hold the Door will be helping him survive. The question, what you're saying is that the payoff? Is that the end point of it? Or is there something even bigger coming in the future? And the past, as is time travel. I am sympathetic to this idea, because yes, Hold the Door it's a big moment, and it's important. But if you learned that you could go into the past and change things, would you not do something about it? I think, or I hope, that this is actually a Bran growing moment. Bran has not had anyone to mentor him, teach him. The Bloodraven is doing that a bit, but even the little bit that we saw, he's like, okay, I now need a nap. I need to go and do something else. And then Bran just goes off and does what he wants to anyway. His walking into Hodor, his skin changing into Hodor is horrific. He's taking over Hodor. Hodor doesn't like it. He's basically just using him. This is not good. He is doing bad things. What I hope for Bran is that this is a growth moment, that he sees what he has done and he realizes suddenly this isn't just something to muck around with. This is actually really serious, because he's not only made Hodor sacrifice himself, but he will realize at that point that every single moment of Hodor's life, everything he'd ever experienced of Hodor, has been his fault. That's all everything was building towards that, and that has to have an impact on him. Surely, I know he's still a child, but the moment that he sits down and thinks about that, he must realize. And so maybe that is the biggest thing. And from then on, yes, he's going to use his powers, but he's not going to try and do that kind of thing again. Question from Lauren Mintz again. I heard that Viserys II was not a Targaryen. He was from Lys, who got Viserys' dragon egg and spent years studying the real Viserys so that he could be confirmed a prince like a Westerosi Anastasia. Okay, well, I don't know. I've not heard that before at all, I have to say. That's good tinfoil. I would say that. I would have to have a look into that. I'm going to look into that one. I've got a couple of things I'm going to come back on next time. That I will have a look into. If something comes up that I go, oh, that's interesting, I will share it next time. But for now, thank you very much for that. That was an interesting bit of tinfoil. Chaos Ballerina. Thank you, picking up something for Cos Billingham. What do you think to the tinfoil theory that Arya Stark died in the fight with the waif and is now just a face being worn? No. This is Arya. We've got so Arya in the books. Arya is very much alive. If this is a question about what happened on the show with the fight with the waif when she's like escaping, the equivalent of that hasn't happened yet in the books. As in, Arya's not just about to run away and being chased by the waif. So she was stabbed really quite hard there. Everything that on the show, this is everything that Arya did after that point was in line with what Arya would do. So there was no hint that she was actually secretly the waif or someone else pretending to be Arya, because it was just Arya doing Arya things. In the books, we haven't reached that point yet, but this is still very definitely Arya because we have things from her point of view. So I remember that theory went around quite a lot at the time on the TV show, and people were coming up with all manner of arguments why this might be the case, but you just had to look at what she did. She was deciding, she was meeting up with old friends. She was killing or trying to kill the people that were on her list to start with. So, yeah. Emily Christina, my tinfoil theory is Mance Rayder is actually Arthur Dayne. I think it's odd the Danes would name Edric after someone who killed Arthur. Thoughts? Okay, so to take the second bit first, the Danes naming Edric after someone who killed Arthur. The Danes naming their heir after Ned. They loved Ned Stark. So this wasn't just we think he's okay. This was, they loved him. They think he's amazing. Now, how might that be? Well, did he kill Arthur Dane? We don't know that he did. We know that they fought. We know that Arthur Dane would have killed Ned, but for Howland Reed's intervention in some way. We know those things, but we don't know that Ned did it. Maybe, I don't think it's as right, but on the show, if you remember, Howland killed Arthur. I don't think that's what's going to happen in the books, but why they loved him was because when you look at what happened after the Robert's Rebellion, if you were a close associate of Rhaegar, then you were either killed or you had to disappear. That there's no other way around this. So we get Arthur, Ashara. You get all of the other two Kingsguard knights who were there. John Connington disappeared, and then you get his two, Miles Mutton and Sir Richard Lonmouth, who had both been his pages. They'd gone as well. Richard Lonmouth disappeared completely. Miles Mutton, I think, died. Everybody in that group had to either die or disappear. That meant that Ashara Dane was on the hit list. I think they love him because of the fact he saved her life by saying that she could marry Howland Reed and go off and hide in the neck. And because he saved her life, that's why they love him. So that's the feeling. And of course, he returned the sword as well. But that's the feeling I get from that. That house could have been completely destroyed and decimated if anybody found out that they were the ones who were supporting harboring the Rhaegar and Lyanna. If Robert Baratheon found that out, the entire house would have been destroyed. Absolutely no doubt about it. So Ned Stark not just saved Ashara, but he saved the entire house. So that is something that is worth naming the heir after him for. So that's what's going on. And that even, I think they would understand if Ned did kill him, Arthur Dane, then I think they would have understood that, because Arthur Dane was doing his job. That was what he was there to do. And it wasn't that Ned hated him. He just needed to get to his sister. So that kind of makes sense to me. But he saved the house. The house would be dead and defunct but for him. So the idea that Mance Rayder is actually Arthur Dane, I don't see it. That's not how Ned remembers it. And Ned, it's very clear. We often treat his fever dream, his memories of the Tower of Joy, as if it's all fever dream. And George R. Martin has told us not to pay 100% attention to the fever dream. This is hallucinations and the like. But some facts he remembers not in a fever dream. He remembers just himself. He's just things that he remembers. And he remembered that of the 7 and the 3, only 2 lived to ride away. That's what he remembers. And so that tells me that Arthur Dane died there, because that's what Ned remembers. And it's not a false memory for him. This wasn't in a fever dream. That's an actual memory. Might Mance Rayder be Arthur Dane? I mean, I've heard this argued by a few people. A few people also think that Corin Halfhand might be him. I can't personally. It seems to be a very different character to Arthur Dane. It seems to be a very different thing that you would do after being a member of Kingsguard, being an honoured member of your house, to suddenly go up to north of the Wall. He's also one of the most recognizable figures in the Seven Kingdoms. Would he have risked going to Winterfell, which he did, if he was actually Arthur Dane? Because there will have been people who've been to tourneys that he was at and would recognize him. I don't think so. It doesn't ring true for me. But I like the idea. I like the fact that trying to get around this idea of some of the oddities in the narrative, but that doesn't quite hang together for me. Roman Lakovet saying, I remember someone once wrote a detailed argument that Jenny's song is also the Song of Ice and Fire. Your thoughts? So the Song of Ice and Fire is the song about the prince that was promised. And this is the song very probably that Rhaegar has written. He's probably got it from the Wood's Witch. I'm not going to go through all of that sort of background and history, but he's very clear. The Song of Ice and Fire is the song of the person he thought was the prince that was promised. So that's what the link is. He was wrong about who the prince that was promised was, but the fact that the Song of Ice and Fire is about the prince that was promised is very clear in his mind. So that's what that is. Jenny's song is not about that. Jenny's song is about Jenny of Oldstones and what happened with her and Prince Duncan. Now that has lots of echoes to what happened with Rhaegar and Lyanna and various other things. So it is linked, but it is not the same thing. But if there's somebody come up with a detailed argument that they are the same thing, then I would happily read that. Okay, let's go with a question from Betty Morgan, saying, hello from Washington, D.C. Hello, Washington, D.C. Is it possible that Tyrion is a Targaryen? I knew I had a question about this. Tyrion is a Targaryen, the son of the Mad King. I understand there's a bit of a timing problem, or I could be mistaken about that. So I talked a little bit earlier about the Tyrion Targaryen thing, but I'll come from a slightly different angle, which is the timing thing. It is entirely possible. So we know that Aerys clearly found Joanna attractive. We know that he got handsy with her at the very least. We know that Tywin was very angry with him. We know that certainly she was dismissed from service in the same way that Aerys's mistresses were dismissed from service. Pardon me. So there is some sort of history there, and the timing does just about work for Tyrion to be. The two of them were together in the same place, so it's entirely possible that he would have had to, I'm sure, force himself on her. This isn't a happy story in any way, shape, or form, but the timing could work. Now, this does tie in with this idea of Tywin, you are not my son, and the rumors that he was born malformed in some way, more than the way that, not just being short, but there were rumors about him having a tail and things like that. These things sound like possibly made up stuff, but George R. R. Martin has allowed us the wiggle room to say it's possible, added to which he clearly has created at the beginning. He's not gone very far with this yet, but made a link between those three characters of Jon, Dany, and Tyrion, which would make sense if they're all Targaryen. And when I say he's made the link, so all of them their mother died in childbirth. All of them, their father, they did not know. So this is the link across between the three of them. George R. R. Martin is wanting us to be seeing that, to hear the echoes in their different stories, and that would make sense thematically if they are all Targaryens, but they just do not know all of their family history. Matt Savino saying we're all secret Targaryens. I think we are. I think the amount of different characters who've possibly been secret Targaryens is amazing. Lady Pushkins, do you think the sound of clashing Valyrian steel could affect dragons? I don't know where this is coming from, whether this is a theory that you've heard somewhere. I've not heard that before. I don't think it's necessarily a thing. What we hear about with dragons is that they can be controlled by use of magical horns. They have saddles on. We've not heard anywhere about clashing Valyrian steel swords. That doesn't seem to make sense. If they were going to be fighting with a Valyrian steel sword, if that would make it go crazy or something, I don't know. But I've not heard it. If there is any evidence out there, I would love to hear that. Dave Sito saying 3 heads has the dragon ? Yeah. So again, this is the idea that until we had Fagon appearing on the scene, the idea, if we were thinking, oh well, we need to be looking for 3 Targaryens in this story, that would be the kind of thing that George R. R. Martin doing. But equally, it may be an idea he half had and then abandoned. There are, I suspect, quite a few of them. This, I think, is my last question from my patrons. So now is a good time to drop, if you've got any more questions in the chat, now is the time to drop them in there. Lady Pushkin saying, why is Tywin so concerned about Tyrek when he seems not so bothered about extended family? So Tyrek Lannister was a cousin, nephew, a part of the extended Lannister clan. He was one of the pages, effectively, to Robert Baratheon, along with Lancel. And when there's that riot in King's Landing that happens after Myrcella has gone off, there's a riot amongst the small folks. Tyrek, lots of people disappear and bad things happen. Tyrek Lannister disappears in that. Now, Tywin and Tyrion both put quite a bit of effort into trying to find him, which, given his, as you say, Tywin's sometimes lack of interest in the wider Lannister family, does seem a bit odd. But I think when you try and work through where Tywin comes from, this does just stack up. He is very, very clear on this idea that if you take out any Lannisters, you're taking on all of us. You can't. The name Lannister means something, and so I think he was just desperately trying to, not that he cared particularly about that one particular Lannister, but if he discovered that somebody had done something bad, he had to make an example of that person. So if he found a person had killed Tyrek and he found out who that person was, he wanted to show that person off so that he could kill them in as brutal a way as possible. Nobody messes with the Lannisters. So I think that's why it's not about caring about that individual person. It's about caring about the family name. Okay, let's go to the chat, see what we've got going on. Sasuke, Tyrek is the son of Tyget and Darlessa Marbrand, so cousin in multiple ways to Tyrion and co. Yeah, so yeah, he's a part of the bigger Lannister clan rather than the core group. Kelly Summers, Meta Tinfoil. George R. R. Martin is taking so long because it's becoming more books we're always going to be 2 books away from the end. It's been growing in the telling since it was a trilogy. Yeah, it's I think as he writes this last 2 books, they are growing in the telling, I think, is the thing. This I'm convinced when we do get the Winds of Winter, this is going to be not just a book. It will have to be published in at least 2 and probably 3 volumes. I think that's where we're going to end up. I think this is just going to be so mammoth when we get there, simply by going through and looking at all the different storylines that he has to corral to get back to a manageable story to end up in A Dream of Spring. I did a whole video on how big the Winds of Winter will be if you're interested, but if you just think about the number of different discrete storylines that he's got going on. You've got, just in Essos, you've got Dany, who's off. She's got to deal with all the Dothraki there. We've got a battle raging down in Meereen. We've got the whole host of different people all arriving in Meereen. They've got to be meeting up or there. We've got Arya up in Bravos. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different point of view characters, presumably all getting chapters just in Essos, and they're not going to stay there for very long. They will start heading off west. Then you've got Sansa and what's happening in the Vale. You've got the massive things happening in King's Landing. You've got the massive things happening down with Euron. You've got loads of stuff happening in the Riverlands. You've got what's happening at the Wall. You've got what's happening at King's Landing. You've got to figure out what's happening with Rickon. There's so much that's going on that he has to bring together. It's going to be massive. Anyway, David Thomas saying Tinfoil. George R. R. Martin got writer's block and is now watching YouTube channels to determine the craziest possibilities. Well, hi, George. Feel free to pick any of these tinfoil theories. Good theory. Caius Ballerina. George named the Bran Starks after Brandon the Blessed, a.k.a. the fictional Fisher King, whose health is tied to the land. Also, Tywin is the dusky woman. Okay, so the first bit, the Fisher King whose health is tied to the land, that's fascinating because if Bran Stark is becoming the Weirwood Network in a fashion, then yes, his health will be tied to the land, because the Weirwood Network are the embodiment of Westeros. They are the lifeblood of Westeros. Tywin is the dusky woman. Is a crazy idea. I love it. The dusky woman, in my view, is almost certainly being skin changed into by Euron. That's semi tinfoil, but I think this is how Euron's keeping an eye on what's happening with Victarion. Jewel Elson saying Night Runners north of the Wall are all Night's Watch deserters. I don't know. So Night's Watch deserters. There are some Night's Watch deserters. The fact is that Night's Watch deserters, because there aren't very many Night's Watch left, there aren't actually that many Night's Watch deserters anymore. You get a few, but it's not a massive thing anymore. Reflective Rambling saying, oh, what the heck, I'll throw it out there. Alaric Stark sent his sons to Jay's anniversary because he was sour over losing his daughter to Alice's services, and Ali led him on a bit. Yeah, okay, I will go with that one. I'm not as caught up in that part of the Stark history as you are, so I will bow to your superior knowledge. If it's tinfoil, it's good tinfoil. Kelsey Sunshine, Westeros and Essos connect only in the long night when the others freeze the sea, which is why both continents have long night mythos. Yeah, so I do like the idea that you have a North Pole, and so you can come down from both sides. And yes, it makes absolute sense to me that when you get, although Westeros seems likely to sort of go all the way up to sort of connect with it in some very cold way. Essos, from what we've seen from the maps, doesn't seem to. It makes sense, though, that if you do have a long night, then yes, huge amounts of ice, that maybe that creates a new ice land bridge. Sasuke saying, if somehow Tyrion doesn't become Lord of Casterly Rock, Tyrek could become that, because I think he's still alive. He could still be alive. It's possible. Jamie theorized that Varys had kidnapped him, which is an intriguing possibility. Carl Karsnock saying there's rather disturbing footage of Charles Dance in drag in real life from a movie he was in during the 1980s. It ain't a pretty picture. Don't say I didn't warn you. I've no idea what context that is. Jay Kane saying, catch these every week, just enjoying an iced-in day in Dallas. Do you think we'll ever get an answer to... so, yeah, Texas is cold at the moment. Do you think we'll ever get an answer on the full intent of the Children of the Forest Weirwood network? They're seemingly much darker. Yeah, will we get a full answer? Full enough, I think, and we'll start getting... the something in the Winds of Winter. This is incidentally, Bran chapters are starting to get fewer and fewer, because I think we will get to this point where he knows so much that you can't write many chapters from his perspective, or otherwise he would just give the story away. So that will become harder and harder for George R. R. Martin to write without giving us huge amounts of information. Okay. I think Astra Inclinant saying, please send Robert the Charles dancing video. I think it was the Ali G movie. Wow. Okay. It may be, by all means, phone me on Twitter if you would like. Okay, right. I think with that, I will start drawing this one to a close. Next week, we have got, I think I'm going to start looking into a few themes in A Song of Ice and Fire. We've got, I can't remember which way I did them, but prophecy and foreshadowing. Also, I'm going to do, I may move one of them, because on my reread or re-listen of the way through Game of Thrones, I'm at the end of the first book now, almost. I've got about 3 or 4 chapters to go. I'd quite like to do a live stream just talking through book 1, just downloading a few of my thoughts when rereading it, what new things I've discovered. Maybe we can just sort of share a few different ideas, a few thoughts about what was going on. So one of those, I'm probably going to slot that in some point this next month. But keep an eye out for a video tomorrow that I've got coming out. It's a Song of Ice and Fire video coming out. It's about skin changing, but it was one of my patrons requested a video about Arya and skin changing and the Tomcat in King's Landing, Balerion. I think there's something in there. I think that I think it's fascinating when I was starting to look through it. So it definitely was worth a video. So keep an eye out for that tomorrow. And then there'll be more Lord of the Rings content and all the rest of it next week. Okay, so I think if you are watching back a little bit later, appearing somewhere around here is going to be a link to other live streams. Appearing somewhere around here is going to be a link to my Patreon. Patrons, I forgot to thank you. Thank you. I can't do this without you. So thank you so much. I hugely appreciate your support. And if you would like to support this channel, the best way to do that is through Patreon. Kelly Johnson just saying, will John and Danny have an epic love or will it flop? Well, they won't have huge amounts of time, but I think they will have a love affair. Okay, that's all for this time. Take care, everyone, and I will see you again soon.